Chapter 1559. Perhaps I'm possessed. These are only my conjectures, and I don't know if they're true. 9 Daos sighed. Chu Feng stood in place and didn't move for a long time. What were his reincarnated parents, Yellow Cattle, Tiger Dong, and the others? As for himself, he was also someone who had stepped on the reincarnation path. Was he no longer himself? No, he hadn't died. He had borrowed the stone jar to pierce through reincarnation, and his true body had snuck over. He hadn't died, but his heart was still heavy. One day would he be like that person, truly come back for real? But he couldn't deny the Ouyang Feng in front of him and the Tiger Dong he had already met. This world is too strange, so much so that it's too strange and terrifying. Look, the blood on our faces is alternating. Is this the reflection, transformation, and intersection of ancient history and the present world? The Dog Emperor spoke in outer space. He was puzzled and even he was a bit scared. On the path of reincarnation, the decayed corpse carried the Emperor's corpse. This was indeed a breakthrough, allowing people to see a corner of the truth. 9 Daos came to his senses and revealed everything that had just happened. The Celestial Emperor tested the method, and the Emperor's corpse emitted hazy symbols in the golden light, revealing the tip of the iceberg. In that case, some people have to die and some have to live. Will there be scapegoats? The shadow suspected to be a fallen immortal king in the darkness spoke. The scene was silent and many people were almost suffocating. Today, they had truly touched upon the forbidden domain. All of a sudden, someone broke the silence. How boring! The world is changing and the epoch is changing. When will your so-called great unification end? We're still waiting. At this moment, a black rain of blood poured down from the two realms' battlefield. It was eerie and terrifying, drowning out the void. It was inauspicious and strange. It actually descended directly. Apart from this, there was also gray mist surging. There was an indescribable fluctuation that was even more terrifying. The inauspicious aura was extremely dense. The strange existence on the sacrificial ground had once said that this era was a gray era. The creatures in the gray mist would dominate this era. No one had expected that something strange and inauspicious would come directly and speak sarcastically. A decree from the heavens prophesied that a glimmer of hope lies in the unification of all heavens. How long are you all going to dilly-dally? Suddenly, an opposing immortal mist surged. Another creature descended, appearing in another part of the void. That place was quite auspicious, not gloomy and cold at all. They were suspected to be from the camp of the 3 Emperor weapons. On this side, a supreme being had once issued a decree, allowing the Yang realm to unify the heavens. Only then would there be a path of survival. Only, now that someone from this side came, they were clearly quite unhappy, a bit cold and arrogant. In the gray mist, there was someone who stared at Chu Feng, because he had previously caught a gray creature. It was originally the incarnation of a woman, but now it was imprisoned at Chu Feng's side, moreover solidified into a small dog. Chu Feng felt that something was wrong. The other party had definitely sensed the greyhound on his body. Rather than being hated and forced to hand it over, Chu Feng decisively crushed it in his sleeves with a bang. He crushed the greyhound to death. In the outer realm, a certain gray-haired woman groaned. She knew that her incarnation had died. However, she didn't come to the 2 realms' battlefield. The strange and inauspicious that came were all seniors, and all of them were strange existences at the ultimate level. In front of the 2 realms' battlefield, regardless of whether it was in the black rain of blood or the gray mist, the ultimate existences of the strange camp were all incomparably cruel, so they naturally sensed something. Although we shouldn't interfere, the officiant promised the heavens to send down a decree to the emperors, ordering you all to unify and give you a chance. However, you dared to kill a member of my race in front of us. You are impudent to the extreme, and even heaven and earth will not allow you to live. In the gray mist, a strange fluctuation surged and extended forward. The boundless gray mist roiled and directly attacked where Chu Feng was. Nine Daos waved his sleeve and cut off the void. He said, "Who is impudent?" He blocked the gray mist that was like a sea. He couldn't watch as Chu Feng suffered a disaster. Using his previous words, this was a disciple in name of the first mountain, and he wouldn't allow the old monsters of other races to harm him. Boom! The gray mist exploded and directly collapsed. A strange aura pervaded the air, making countless people tremble in fear. They felt a wave of fear that came from the depths of their hearts. This was the terrifying and inauspicious creature in the sacrificial ground. We gave you all a chance and gave you all time. Now you actually want to provoke us and die prematurely? In the gray mist, a creature spoke coldly. It should be a creature at the true immortal level. It was formed from a great mist that scattered and gathered. The substance was very dense, extremely sinister, and rather terrifying. Even Nine Daos was a bit apprehensive. He wasn't scared of it, but rather worried that the balance would be broken and the officiant behind it would act prematurely. Truly meddlesome. Since he's an eyesore, then just kill him and quickly unify the world. At this time, even the living person in the white immortal mist spoke. He was someone from the camp of the three Emperor weapons. Now that he appeared, he actually said such words and wanted Chu Feng to die. Not long ago, a decree descended from the heavens. It seemed to protect the Yang realm and the heavens, but now the people from that camp came. They were quite arrogant. For the sake of the so-called Great Unification, they didn't care about a few people dying. It was to the extent where this camp didn't seem to be mortal enemies with the sacrificial ground side. They didn't necessarily oppose them to the end. What exactly were they plotting? They were actually urging for the Great Unification? Bang! In the immortal mist, that person also took action. He was actually quite ruthless. Was the so-called protection actually this weak? He actually wanted to kill Chu Feng first. Rumble! Nine Daos suddenly waved his sleeve. Heaven and earth exploded. The streak of immortal light that rushed over was destroyed. That person's attack naturally failed as well. It was clear that Nine Daos' level was higher than his. He didn't fear this person, but he was worried about that supreme existence. If that person appeared again, who could stop him? You better think this through. It's just a youth, yet you actually want to go against us. You have to understand who is protecting the Yang realm and the heavens right now. The person in the white mist spoke, his voice extremely cold. His level was naturally lower than Nine Daos, but he dared to be so domineering. Everyone knew what he was relying on. Do you really think that with an emperor behind you, you can really be unbridled? Do you understand who I'm carrying on my back? In the reincarnation cycle, the rotten corpse spoke. He was carrying the emperor's corpse on his back. And Nine Daos stepped forward and said, "I don't care if you're protecting him, pitying him, keeping him in captivity, or looking down on him. I won't accept this kind of attitude. I said before, Chu Feng is an honorary disciple of the First Mountain. True immortals shouldn't reach out their claws to him." His voice wasn't loud, but it was very domineering. At the same time, he coldly faced the sacrificial ground and the camp behind the three Emperor weapons. Heh heh! In the gray mist, there was a strange creature laughing, eerie and cold. You better think this through. Don't make a mistake. In the white immortal mist, there was a fluctuation of divine power, but the voice that came out became even colder. At this moment, in front of the two-realm battlefield, the evolvers of various races, the leaders, and the ultimate old monsters all felt their bodies go cold. Were they about to fall into a desperate situation? The inauspicious and bizarre creatures had arrived, and they always had malicious intentions. And now, even the people from the camp behind the three Emperor weapons had appeared with this kind of attitude. If Nine Daos and the others didn't give in and didn't allow Chu Feng to be killed, would they be abandoned? The people from the three Emperor Weapons camp would no longer protect the world of the living, no longer care about the heavens, and allow the world to perish. For a moment, everyone felt as if they had fallen into a cold hell, and the chill penetrated their bones. With a howl, the dog Emperor exploded and roared in outer space. Motherf *Ker, this is too much. Whose world is this? This is the former residence of the three celestial emperors. Little brats dare to come and act so impudently? Who are you threatening? Nine Daos waved at the black dog in outer space and stepped forward. Who are you threatening? Fellow Daoist, calm down. In the two-realm battlefield, some people were afraid and quickly dissuaded him. If things continued like this, it would be extremely terrifying. The world of the living and the heavens might quickly fall. Nine Daos said coldly, "Do they want us to drag out an ignoble existence with this attitude? I'll say it one more time. Think carefully," said the person in the snow-white mist. He was becoming more and more indifferent and ruthless. Chu Feng sighed and stepped forward. Moreover, he said to himself, "Jar and the ineffable thing on my body, wake up. I want to smash the heavens with my fist." He felt helpless and depressed. He had been targeted inexplicably and had fallen into this situation. He could only go back on his words and summon Celestial Emperor Jar and the other mysterious thing on his body to wake up. I hope this is the last time I'm threatened by someone," Chu Feng said in a low voice as if he was talking to himself. Yao Yao decisively walked side by side with him and walked forward. Zhou Shi and Old Gu also followed. Even the unprincipled Ouyang Feng hesitated for a moment. His little face was deathly pale, and in the end, he also walked forward while trembling. Nine Daos shouted, "Back off. With me here, it's not your turn to risk your lives. They've gone too far. Who do they think they are? Is this pitiful protection or unbridled contempt? They're bossy and bossy. They've forgotten where this is, whose hometown it is, and whose backyard it is." With a rumble, a glaring light flickered between heaven and earth. A spear appeared in his hand. He stood on the reincarnation road and pointed it forward. At the same time, he targeted the ominous sacrificial ground and the person in the immortal mist. From a certain perspective, the person in the immortal mist made Nine Daos' mood even worse. Was the so-called protection a charity or was it full of malice? It was truly difficult to accept. Heh heh. The cold laughter of a terrifying being from the sacrificial ground could be heard from within the black rain of blood and the grey mist. And in the white mist, the person also said coldly, "I came from the heavens. Do you all know what that represents? Today you all are truly too impudent." The decayed corpse carried the Emperor's corpse on his back and said coldly, "The three celestial emperors are my old friends. That person should be my brother. Are you qualified to speak impudently here?" Scram! Nine Daos shouted. The spear in his hand shone. Glaring multicolored light blossomed amidst the rust. This wasn't only directed at the person in the great mist. He was releasing some kind of mysterious aura. This was the spear left behind by that person. They've already disappeared a long time ago. They've even died a long time ago. What else could there be? The person in the immortal mist replied coldly. He didn't care at all. At this moment, the rust on Nine Daos' spear fell off and turned into a rain of light. It released a terrifying aura and stirred up an extremely terrifying storm in the golden ripples of light on the reincarnation road. At this time, in a special region on a certain reincarnation road, the clay idol's eyelids rustled and stirred up even more dust. All of it fell into the abyss in front of him and produced terrifying golden ripples. At the same time, in front of the two-realm battlefield, the golden ripples were clear and crystalline on the reincarnation road. The energy fluctuations became increasingly terrifying. Regardless of whether it was the black rain of blood or the creature in the grey mist, or the person in the immortal mist, they were all incomparably cold. They didn't believe that Nine Daos would dare take the initiative to attack. What a pity. You all don't know what's good for you. The heavens will fall because of this, and the Yang realm will also be extinguished in the near future, the person in the immortal mist said coldly. Boom. The next moment, he was horrified and incomparably terrified. He felt as if his soul had been swallowed by a black hole and drowned by a torrential flame. He felt a stabbing pain in front of his eyes, and his whole body was trembling involuntarily. For a moment, he couldn't help but want to kneel down. What was that? A prehistoric giant beast, the overlord of countless eras? I come from the heavens! He roared and struggled, not wanting to kneel down. Apart from that, this kind of roar was also a warning and a threat. At the same time, in the black rain of blood and the gray mist, the strange creatures also roared and struggled. They couldn't help but want to kneel down. Why don't you see where this is? This is the former residence of the Third Sky Emperor. The Dog Emperor roared in the outer realm. This is the place where that person performed reincarnation. This is his backyard. How dare you all be so impudent? Nine Dao said coldly. At this moment, everyone saw that in the golden ripples, some dust rose up and fluttered about, falling into the immortal mist, the black rain of blood and the gray mist. The dust looked very ordinary, but in an instant it crushed the creatures of the two camps, causing them to explode and collapse. The Third Sect Master. Chapter 1560. Even though Jiu Daoi looked incomparably powerful on the surface, his heart was trembling. He was deeply shaken and exceptionally shocked. Where did that dust come from? Who was showing their divinity and spirit? Even he, who had lived through, who knew how many great eras and left behind, who knew how many great eras, was trembling inwardly. One could well imagine how shocking this was. He indeed held the spear in his hand and faced the two great camps alone. However, he didn't make a move. That wasn't his destructive power. The dust came from the depths of the sparkling golden light. It was shaken out on its own, or perhaps it could be said that it was blown out from the reincarnation. Just like that, a bit of dust rose and drifted down, yet it was enough to destroy the strangeness and inauspiciousness of the sacrificial ground. Moreover, it made the true immortal level creatures of the three Emperor weapon camps explode, their bodies and souls extinguished. Even Jiu Daoi had never seen such terrifying dust. The dust clearly didn't have any special energy, nor did it contain any natural laws. It was extremely ordinary, to the extent where there were no fluctuations, yet it was like this. In reality, everyone on the two realms battlefield was trembling. They simply couldn't believe their eyes. This was especially true for the leaders of various clans, some ultimate creatures and fallen true immortals. They felt even more fear. They clearly saw that the dust didn't have any Dao aura or energy, yet it still smashed people to death, disintegrating their flesh and shattering their souls. How horrifying was this? From past to present, this kind of thing was still extremely terrifying. Everyone could see that this wasn't done by Jiu Daoi. The dust that rose from the depths of the reincarnation path easily crushed all enemies. While everyone was shaken, they couldn't help but think that this kind of display couldn't be that person, right? Some people swallowed with difficulty. The person who was rumored to have disappeared a long time ago and was even believed to be non-existent, someone who had never existed, suddenly appeared just like that? All of this was because this was the place where that person performed reincarnation. It could be considered his backyard. The dust rose precisely from his territory and drifted down. Was this a warning? In reality, the most powerful people here were even more nervous. For example, the short elder who revived from the famed mountains. Even though he established the so-called time scripture, shaking the present world, and was suspected to be an immortal king-level existence, his status extraordinary, looking down on the heavens. However, he was also frightened and terrified. The more one understood, the more powerful they were, the more reverence they felt towards that person. Every time the world thinks that he is dead, he seems to appear. The short old man muttered to himself in an almost inaudible voice. When the many evolvers in the two-realm battlefield heard this, they were all shocked. Was this true? As for the black figure in the darkness, suspected to be a fallen immortal king who was unable to turn back and eternally fell into darkness, he was even more terrified, a chill running down his spine. The one who felt it the most was actually the black dog in the outer realm. This was because it suddenly realized that it seemed to have been saying not too long ago that there had never been that person. He was something that all living beings yearned for, an illusory existence that was reflected by some kind of hope. This was even more serious than saying that he was dead. The dog emperor's hair stood on end. Then, it decisively and directly became serious. It immediately asked, "Who was talking nonsense just now? I warn all of you, there will be a day when he returns. Whoever dares to make wild guesses will become my enemy, the enemy of the 3 sky emperors, and the enemy of the greater power." Damn it, someone wanted it to spray dog blood. Wasn't that what you said yourself? If you want to become an enemy, you should become an enemy of yourself. Similarly, the 3 sky emperors can't die. There will be a day when he returns. The dog emperor added, acting brave for itself. It was really a little nervous, afraid that a speck of dust would fall and smash it into a puddle of dog mud. In the next moment, the rotten corpse also returned to the outer realm with the emperor's corpse on its back. He thought of many things, and his mind was in a trance as he pondered quietly. Crack! Suddenly, the sky split apart, torn apart by a bolt of lightning. A beam of light flew towards the earth. The light carried a terrifying aura that engulfed the boundless Yang realm. It even intimidated the heavens and shook the universe. For a moment, it was unknown how many people trembled and fell to the ground. They couldn't help but bow to it out of subservience that originated from their souls. Then, the beam of light became stronger and stronger, emitting a monstrous pressure. It revealed its true appearance. It was a decree that rushed over and entered the Yang realm. This was simply going to destroy all things and return the world to its origin. It was like a comet that was going to destroy the great Earth. It was also like a grand river of stars that went out of control and wanted to tear apart the entire universe. The aura of destruction erupted. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock. Was this a decree from the supreme existence behind the 3 emperor weapons? That kind of aura had appeared not too long ago, and it even sent down words of warning, wanting to unify all races and realms. Everyone was terrified. A single word or action from this kind of existence could make a great world prosper or decline. It could destroy the most powerful and flourishing evolutionary civilization in history with a flick of its finger. Was an immeasurable great tribulation going to descend? Would the Yang realm cease to exist because of this? Perhaps it would be completely erased. The existence behind the 3 emperor weapons is sending down punishment to destroy the heavens. The lips of some ultimate creatures were trembling. This was a great event that affected the world. No one could oppose it, and no one could stop it. It's over, everything is about to come to an end. After offending that type of supreme existence, what hope is there left to speak of? We are all going to die, all clans are going to perish. There was an old clan elder whose face was pale, completely in despair. This wasn't the attitude of a single person, but rather that of many people. Many great clans' leading figures' faces completely lost color, carrying deep fear. Countless people entered a state of panic, falling into a state of despair. Not even true immortals could endure it. Their bodies betrayed their souls, falling weakly onto the ground and shivering uncontrollably. Who could oppose it? Who could stop it? After all, even though that existence had appeared before, it also further proved that he wasn't in the Yang realm. Would he still be able to return in time? The great world was about to collapse. Who could support the heavens? Can you mend the heavens? Chu Feng sighed. He raised his head towards the sky. He had already completed his preparations. The hand within his large sleeves clenched the jar, ready to throw it out like a rock at any time. Panic, despair, is there any use? At the crucial moment, Nine Dowie spoke. He was unexpectedly calm and didn't show any fear. This was the birthplace of a resplendent evolutionary civilization, the homeland of unmatched beings from past to present. I refuse to believe that the existence beyond the heavens will truly disregard everything and destroy everything. What's important is that someone doesn't allow it. Since he can appear, he will pay attention to it, never forgetting it, whispering in his heart. There will definitely be a reaction. Nine Dowie continuously spoke in a low voice. The so-called supreme existence is merely the end of the road. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the decree descending from the heavens. He didn't panic, but rather resolutely said, "Back then, that person had already killed supreme existences as soon as he stepped foot into that domain. Has he ever feared anyone? After so many years have passed, I believe that after the road ends, he will definitely extend it again. He definitely won't stop moving forward. If someone really wants to take action, so what if he comes? It's not like our world's predecessors haven't killed him before." His mouth didn't stop talking. Was Nine Dowie crazy? This was what countless people thought. When the decree descended, he actually dared to speak these types of words, talking about taking action every time he opened his mouth. The entire world was plunged into boundless fear. Was the heavens going to be overturned? The Dog Emperor roared, "What are you afraid of? Are you really going to take action? The 3 Sky Emperors who are still alive won't allow such a thing to happen. The living Sky Emperors must have long reached the unmatched realm. Come, I am that person's brother, and also a friend of the 3 Sky Emperors. Come, suppress and kill me." The decayed corpse carried the Emperor's corpse on his back and strode in outer space. He withstood the endless pressure and stood tall. This Emperor is here." The Dog Emperor went crazy. He actually blocked the path like a mountain king, howling and howling. So what if he's the supreme existence? It's merely the end of the road. Who dares to call themselves unmatched? Nine Dowie roared and raised the spear in his hand. He was praying in his heart, calling out to that person. Crazy. Everyone was terrified. At the same time of despair, they all felt that they were completely crazy. It was already too late to summon someone. At the scene, even the immortal kings were too far away. They couldn't change anything at all. Anyone who went up was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They would be crushed into mush. Chapter 1561. A decree shook the world. It was like a boundless sea of lightning, arriving from outer space, vast and dazzling, majestic and horrifying, illuminating the entire world, intimidating all creatures. There was no one who wasn't terrified, no expert who wasn't trembling, crawling on the ground. They couldn't resist this power, their bodies involuntarily twitching, even true immortals about to completely fall weak onto the ground. The master of the 3 emperor artifacts, the supreme existence from the heavens, was angry? Who could resist it? It wasn't his body, just a strand of remnant might, just a decree, yet it was going to sweep through the world, make all life panic. Everyone was in despair. Who else could stop this type of matchless divine might? The evolved beings of all clans were shivering, their bodies unable to control themselves, shaking uncontrollably. The most terrifying thing was that their souls were instinctively throbbing, wishing to bow down towards that decree. The heavens seemed to have a spirit, heaven and earth trembling like people. This type of scene was too terrifying. Great worlds, boundless cosmos, all worlds produced irregular scenes at the same time, all of them rumbling, trembling, as if they were paying homage. The world seemed to be kowtowing, welcoming the decree. The emissary of the supreme existence from the heavens was killed. This is a punishment. There was a true immortal whose lips were trembling, spitting out this sentence with difficulty. The entire world was boundless, no one able to face it. Anyone who went up was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, crushed into powder. The decree arrived. It was said to be like a sea of lightning, but it was actually more like a boundless stellar river, boundless and endless, hanging down, about to submerge the great earth. Everyone sensed that type of powerful and ancient energy aura, feeling more and more how insignificant they were, as if they were ants looking up at the starry sky. They were too petty and insignificant. It really is a decree condensed from a stellar river? Even the dog emperor was trembling, its rotting flesh about to bend under the pressure of that aura, its vertebrae releasing gotsy sounds, about to break. However, how could it lower its head? How could it be willing to bow down? It was a creature that had previously followed 3 heavenly emperors, so no matter who it encountered, it couldn't bow down or kowtow. The decree swooped down, surrounding the boundless great earth. Everyone saw that the light that erupted from its surroundings were actually great stars. They were incomparably enormous, rumbling as they spun about, splitting apart the void. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock. This was a scene that had never been recorded before in ancient history. The boundless stars rotated and gathered together to form a decree. If it didn't stop by itself, then penetrating the world of the living would be too easy. For all living beings, this was the end of the world. If no one stopped it, this world might only have its last moments left. In the depths of the path of reincarnation, golden ripples shimmered. In a certain special region, the clay idol swayed slightly, its eyelids fluttering. Even more dust fell, drifting into the dark abyss in front of it. At the same time, in front of the 2-realm battlefield, dust accompanied by a gentle golden light rose up. It was like floating dust, like clouds and mist, scattering all over the sky. It was as if there was a true meaning that had existed since ancient times as it swept towards the sky. Dust filled the air, coming into contact with the all-encompassing light of the decree. There was no change, but some kind of fluctuation seemed to be inadvertently released. The black silhouette that seemed to be from the fallen immortal King Ray spoke. He was staring at Jiui. Unless that person you are waiting for returns, all of this cannot be stopped. When the highest existence becomes angry, everything from past to present will collapse. He might very well be a true immortal king, perhaps even reaching the end of this path. This type of cultivation realm was already considered too high to reach in the heavens. However, even he was in despair, helpless. He could only wait for death. In the boundless great earth, boundless heavens, great thousand worlds, all of the giants felt the same way. There was nothing they could do. However, immediately afterwards, with a hong sound, after that decree descended, all of the radiance was suddenly restrained. Its aura shrunk, condensing into a tangible decree. Its energy and its world-destroying aura had all disappeared, leaving behind only a simple and unadorned decree. Moreover, someone also appeared, descending along with the decree. This person came from the heavens, exceeding true immortals, but he still wouldn't be stronger than Jiui. He was a bit meager, an elder. He was deeply surprised. He looked at the dust that naturally rose and fell, revealing a pensive expression, not saying anything for a long time. The scene was completely silent. No one said anything. It was completely silent. No one had expected that the decree, which was like a river of stars crashing down, would suddenly calm down in the end. It lost all of its energy and appeared here. It didn't come to destroy the world? The most important thing was that another person had appeared, suspected to be in existence that surpassed true immortals. Did he come from the heavens? Jiui didn't speak from beginning to end. He narrowed his eyes and held the spear in his hand. He wouldn't cower no matter what because he had a certain conviction in his heart. He believed that that person would return. He couldn't lower his head. Apart from him, there was also the Dog Emperor and the Rotten Corp. Who were they in contact with? 3 celestial emperors. Naturally, they wouldn't bow down. Their auras were very strong. Just now, Chu Feng, Yao Yao, Old Gu, Zhou Shi, and the strange dragon didn't make any unusual movement. They weren't pressed to the ground by the vast divine might that pervaded the air when the decree surged. Everything was cancelled out invisibly by the stone jar. From everyone's point of view, they had obtained Jiuyi's protection. Everyone, don't be nervous. I don't have any evil intentions, the thin old man from the heavens said calmly as he looked at everyone. At this moment, the true immortals and ultimate entities had recovered. The other evolvers slowly got up with pale faces and stared at that person and the simple decree floating above his head. Absolute heaven and earth are connected. This has always been the case since ancient times. It's too difficult to come from the heavens. I could only use the Patriarch's decree to tear open a passage and come to this world. The thin old man seemed to be explaining with such a tone. He didn't put on a lofty attitude. In fact, the so-called separation between the heavens and the heavens was far worse than what this person had said. Almost no one could ascend to the heavens. It was unimaginably difficult. Since ancient times, not many people could enter the heavens. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't come with evil intentions. Everyone revealed looks of surprise. The scene just now was truly hair-raising. Everyone thought that this world was going to collapse. No matter what, many people let out a sigh of relief. Not long ago, they were in despair. They thought every race was going to die without a burial ground. However, there were quite a few people who didn't relax. It was because an emissary had died not long ago. This wasn't a small matter. At the very least, Jiuyi, the Dog Emperor, and the rotten corpse were all on high alert. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. I am a reasonable person. The Patriarch has decreed that he won't make things difficult for the creatures here. He will even help you, the thin old man said calmly. At this time, a cold laugh sounded from the distant black rain of blood and the gray mist. It was clear that the strange and ominous creature hadn't left yet. He was still here. In fact, the people of the Yang realm were also astonished. All the experts on the two-realm battlefield were puzzled. The emissary of the Supreme Being had been killed. Was there no problem? Was it just going to be brushed aside like that? The Patriarch has some fate with this world. He owes you a favor, so he will more or less protect you a bit. He will allow you all to unify the world and fight for a chance of survival. The thin old man spoke, speaking slowly and tirelessly. He actually said these words. Back then, he saw with his own eyes the Supreme Being that walked out of this world die. Unfortunately, he was powerless to save him. Just this one sentence stirred up endless waves. Between the heavens, the decision-makers of countless races, and all the ultimate beings, there wasn't a single one who wasn't trembling in fear. Jiuyi's heart was even more shaken. It was as if it was going to jump out of his chest. His face directly turned pale, and he couldn't remain calm anymore. The Supreme Being had died? Who was it? Boom, boom, boom. At this time, the great thousand worlds and the various universes all rang out with the sound of thunder. It was as if they were announcing this world-shocking news, triggering boundless phenomena. An unfathomable Supreme Being had died. He came from this world, but he had fallen in a foreign land. This was simply earth-shattering, shocking all the races. Jiuyi wanted to open his mouth and ask, but he couldn't find the opportunity. The thin old man didn't continue talking about this topic. Instead, he shook his hand and borrowed a beam of light from the decree. It swept through the void in front of him. Rumble! Thunder rumbled on the flat ground. Chaotic light splashed everywhere. The beam of light that was emitted from the decree actually imprisoned the two-realm battlefield. It seemed to be gathering something. Soon, everyone knew what he was doing. In that instant, the peace of the battlefield was shattered. Ghostly wails and wolf howls rang out. Chilling winds blew, and countless soul shadows and malicious spirits appeared. They were forcefully condensed. At the same time, an ancient and strange black path appeared. That was the path that led to the 9 underworld. It was the strange and inauspicious reincarnation path of the ancient underworld. There, chilling winds howled angrily. Soul shadows were everywhere. It was too terrifying. This wasn't the reincarnation path that Joey and the others stood on, but rather the true ancient underworld path. It led to an inauspicious land, and it carried endless strangeness. Roar. Everyone saw a tattered true immortal remnant soul appear. It was forcefully gathered, and a portion of it was indistinctly revealed. Of course, the soul body was badly damaged. It was to the extent where even Joey frowned. He saw an ancient remnant soul that was close to a mortal king level. Woof! The dog emperor released a low roar. Its pupils constricted. It actually saw the ruined soul of a deceased enemy from back then. It was an immortal king-level monster that should have died a great era or two ago. However, a portion of its soul was actually left behind. Truly left it shocked. Soon after, it let out a long sigh. That creature couldn't have come back to life. It was only a broken fragment of its illusory body. Is this the ancient underworld path from before the age of emperors? The decayed corpse asked solemnly. It's an old path. It's a long and disorderly path that connects all world. There's even a secret path that leads to the heavens. It can be considered a shortcut that connects heaven and earth, the thin elder said. These words caused everyone to be dumbfounded. The ancient underworld path from before the age of emperors was actually connected to the heavens? One could use this path to ascend? One had to understand that it was practically impossible for the living beings of this world to ascend to the heavens. Only by crossing that flight of stairs and becoming a supreme being would they have the ability to ascend. But now, there was actually an ancient path that was directly connected to that place. There's no need to think about it. If you enter this path, there's only death. Even the monsters of the current ancient underworld don't dare to take this path, nor can they take a shortcut. They don't have the qualifications to do so, the thin elder said indifferently. This seemed to contain some shocking information. This ancient underworld path was very mysterious and terrifying. It had existed for a long time, and it was very likely that it was much more ancient than the strange monsters that were entrenched there. This was an inauspicious path. Perhaps it could even be called a path of death. Chu Feng recalled a scene he had seen before. At that time, the stone jar had shone, reflecting boundless mountains and rivers. The ancient underworld path appeared, actually devouring emperors. This old path was connected to all worlds and even to the heavens. Suddenly, many people were shocked, their expressions sluggish. In that terrifying old path, a figure quickly condensed and appeared. Everyone sucked in a cold breath of air. Someone who had already disappeared, whose body and soul had been destroyed, could be summoned and reappeared? This simply broke the great Tao's supreme logic, turning the impossible into the possible. It was precisely the emissary from before, the true immortal who had been scattered by the dust not long ago. In an instant, he was completely reconstructed, including his flesh, walking out in perfect condition. Martial uncle. After this person came out, he immediately cried out in alarm, incomparably happy and excited. He came back to life. Then, he looked towards Jiu Daoi, Chu Feng, and the others with incomparable hatred. He sneered again and again. Who was he? He came from the heavens, and after his body and soul were destroyed, the ancestral master's decree allowed him to reappear. This was simply a method that defied the past and present. It was unimaginable. All the races were shocked. This really exceeded common sense. He could come back to life after his body and soul were destroyed? Even Jiu Daoi was greatly moved. He was a bit absent-minded as he looked forward in a daze. Although his flesh and soul light have been condensed, this isn't him. Rather than saying that it's a resurrection, it's better to say that it's just a clone. Jiu Daoi said with a serious expression as he stared at the thin elder. Maybe it's him, or maybe it's someone else, or maybe it's just a clone. The thin elder actually said this. Then, he pointed at the emissary with his hand, causing the space between his brows to shine, and all kinds of things that happened before were reflected. Yes, your death wasn't unjust. Bossy and bossy, using the ancestral master's name to tyrannically abuse others and give orders. Who do you think you are? Go, the ancestral master won't tolerate disciples like you. The thin elder pointed with his hand, and the expression on the emissary's face froze. Then, like glass shattering, he exploded, his body and soul destroyed. Just like that, he was erased again? For a moment, there wasn't a single evolver who wasn't dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, everyone was still shocked by the peerless power of the decree. The methods of that invincible being in the high heavens were too terrifying. He actually defied the past and present, and even brought back those who had truly been destroyed. But the next moment the emissary was killed again. First, he displayed supreme power and rewrote life and death, all for the sake of restoring the truth of what had happened not long ago. Then, he killed him again. Everyone was shocked by this. It's time for the great unification. Everything will eventually come to that step. The curtains that should fall will fall, and the ones that should come will come. The thin elder looked at everyone present. Wait, Jiudaoyi said. He really wanted to know just who in the world was the utmost being that this man was talking about. Jiudaoyi asked, I want to know about a person. He went to the high heavens. How is he now? The thin elder was surprised, but he still responded. He asked, Who are you talking about? What's his name? Chapter 1562. He is. Nine Das opened his mouth, wanting to say a name. This was a single word, a name that was enough to shake the endless heavens. But as soon as he said it, an astonishing change took place. Boom! Blinding brilliance flickered in the clear sky. There were no clouds, no demonic ghosts, but primal chaos lightning struck down in an instant, covering the entire place. The lightning that pierced through the river of time was too terrifying. Its sound was fierce, and its radiance was powerful. It was incomparable. Everyone trembled. What did they just see? The river of time that had existed since ancient times really did appear in front of everyone's eyes, crossing over. However, a streak of light had pierced through it. The skinny elder from the heavens screamed miserably. He felt as if his entire body had been pierced through, and his body was about to evaporate into a bloody mist. He was about to disappear. Why? He was terrified and unwilling. Why did it strike him? That streak of primal chaos lightning was still quite far from him. He had only seen it, yet he was already in such a miserable state. At the crucial moment, the decree floating above his head released endless clear splendor, saving his life. The decree's radiance was dazzling, protecting him. Otherwise, even if this world-shocking lightning hadn't specifically targeted him, the remnant might still have been enough to make his body and soul dissipate. When everything calmed down, the river of time faded away, and the abnormal scene of lightning and thunder dissipated. Everyone was absent-minded, staring blankly. On the battlefield, the skinny elder's body was almost disintegrated. At this moment, specks of clear light from the decree mended his tattered body, allowing him to reappear. He had almost died. The skinny elder trembled, wanting to roar out. It wasn't him who said it, and he didn't mention any names. Why did it strike him? However, he didn't dare to speak. If he wasn't careful, he might turn into ashes next time, and his 3 lifetimes would be for naught. The Dog Emperor, the rotten corpse, Chu Feng, and the others were all dumbstruck, staring at the scene without stopping. Nine Das was also puzzled. The name he mentioned. Why did the skinny elder suffer the primal chaos heavenly tribulation? Soon, he noticed that there were traces of electric arcs flowing and fading away on the spear in his hand. He immediately understood that this was because he had a keepsake in his hand. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be much better off. Even though it was like this, he still had a righteous expression on his face and didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. Moreover, He didn't care if it was right or wrong, and he directly started to accuse the old man. He looked at the thin old man and said in a serious tone, "After you heard that name just now, you developed evil thoughts in your heart and were greatly disrespectful?" "No." The thin old man denied immediately. He was furious. "Are you trying to kill me?" In fact, before he even heard that name, he was inexplicably struck. Who could he reason with? The thin old man seriously suspected that he had taken the blame for the old man's old skin. He had the urge to strangle him to death. "Then what's going on?" Nine Dowie asked righteously. "How would I know?" The thin old man was on the verge of losing his mind. He wanted to flare up, but he restrained himself with great willpower in the end. It was because he was scared that something bad would happen. "Don't make things difficult for me. As an emissary, I am only a bit stronger than a true immortal. I haven't truly reached the immortal king realm yet. I was born in this great era, so my knowledge is limited." The thin old man kept a low profile. He didn't want to be contaminated by the great karma of the unseen world. However, there were some people who didn't give up, for example, Nine Dowie and the Dog Emperor. They wanted to know everything about that person. The former was impatient, while the latter was curious. That was why they walked up together, asking again and again. Even though they didn't mention his true name, there were some other hint. "I really don't know. The waters of this world are so deep. I don't dare trace back to the figures from several great eras ago. If I mention them too much, I fear that something unexpected will happen. Above the heavens, there are some creatures that cannot be spoken of. Even after death, their names cannot be mentioned. Several great eras ago, there was more than one famous existence in the heavens. It is because the territory here is just too vast, just too large, boundless, and limitless. It is understandable what kind of Tao fruit they obtained, but as for which world they came from, whether or not they came from here, it is impossible to find out, unable to find their roots. You all don't need to ask me." The thin old man quickly and succinctly said a few sentences. He was truly scared. "What are you saying?" Nine Dowie was very strict. What he didn't want to hear the most were ominous and bad news. He said coldly, "Why can a person display great power after death? Impossible." The thin old man said, "They were too powerful when they were alive, leaving behind traces in this world. Even time can't erase them. They exist forever, and when someone mentions them, their traces will be revealed." After saying this, he felt a chill run down his back. He looked around again and again. Then, he said, "Actually, what you want to know is nothing more than two outcomes." According to what he said, one of the outcomes was just mentioned: the traces from when one was alive would be revived, and when one's name was mentioned, their might would be revealed. This made everyone think deeply. The Dog Emperor, the Rotten Corpse, Nine Dowie, Chu Feng, and the others' hearts trembled, each feeling different. Because, according to this understanding, during the Soul River Great Battle, some kind of great power was also touched. The second outcome was naturally that after the road was over, the fish leaped into the sky and crossed the tribulation again. Perhaps a new road would appear, or perhaps that person would pluck a perfect Tao position. That was why the thin old man didn't dare speculate about it even if he was beaten to death. At the very least, he didn't dare to mention it in this world. "Which supreme being are you talking about?" Nine Dowie asked nervously. "It's..." The thin old man hesitated, but in the end, he looked around and didn't see any horrifying scenes. He relaxed and said, "Pollen once filled the sky and rushed into the heavens." However, just as he said this, a strange aura rose up from the ground. He screamed, and blood flowed from his eyes. Tender sprouts grew out, and the top of his head also sprouted. His skull was torn open. He wanted to say that person was dead, so how could there be a demon? Obviously, he was a little conceited before. After all, his ancestor was now glorious, so when he mentioned the dead woman, some thoughts couldn't help but grow in his heart. In the end, he was in this strange and tragic state. It was the decree that saved him again. This time, it directly wrapped around his body and helped him purify it. Only then was he safe. This made his hair stand on end. What kind of place was this? Why was it that the moment he mentioned it, he would be sensed and targeted? Could it be that the woman at the end of the pollen road wasn't completely dead? Something was wrong. The thin old man was frightened. Perhaps her grave was in this realm. This was the thin old man's guess. He trembled with fear and didn't dare to think too much. In reality, there was someone who saw more clearly than him, and that was Chu Feng. What did he see? Pollen filled the sky, and they were all spiritual particles. However, the people of the two realms' battlefield didn't see it. It was precisely the spiritual particles that flew up that caused the thin old man's eyes to bleed, the top of his skull to be torn open, and the tender sprouts to drill out from his flesh. Although Jiu Daoi didn't see anything, he sensed something. He said, "I feel that your bloodline has great karma with the expert of the pollen road." After mentioning this, Jiu Daoi shut his mouth. He didn't want to say anything else. He even believed that the thin old man's bloodline had great karma with this realm. Otherwise, how could it be like this? The thin old man's face was pale. He said, "I don't know. I will leave now. I won't have any more connections with you, and I won't interfere with this realm." He decisively fled. He wanted to follow the ancestors' orders and take a look around the heavens. Then, he would leave as soon as possible and return to the heavens. He was truly afraid that something bad would happen. The scene became silent. Everyone was thinking about what the heavens were plotting. The end of the world was coming. How would the great karma end? No matter what, we don't have a choice between life and death. Let's unify as soon as possible. We can't afford internal friction. If we have a choice, we should always face the outside world and eradicate the abnormalities. Someone spoke. It was an old ultimate expert. Everyone believed that what he said was correct. Now, it was time to act and gather all of their power together. Unifying the world, regardless of whether there was a chance of survival or not, was the only choice now. The good thing was that the fallen immortal royal race's experts, who had arrived at the two realms' battlefield, were showing goodwill. They were willing to leave the abyss and stand together with the people of the Yang realm. Of course, this was only a portion of the fallen immortal royal race's evolvers. There was still a group of them who would forever fall into darkness and could no longer turn back. It was impossible for them to support the Yang realm. Those people didn't come this time. Their choices were different, and they would eventually stand against each other. In the boundless universe, there are no more than 10 civilizations that have a complete evolutionary system and can reach the end of evolution. Now, there are only 4 or 5 of them left. The Dog Emperor said. This was a fact that all true immortal-level evolvers knew. There were countless wondrous methods in the boundless universe, and there were many cultivation systems. But to sum it up, all methods led to the same destination. Many of them were branches of some great system. In the boundless universe, there were actually only a few main paths of evolution. The Yang realm was naturally one, and the great realm where the fallen immortal royal race resided was another. The Yang realm had the support of some fallen true immortals, and this was naturally a great help. Unifying the world might be achieved soon, Jiui said. If we want to unify the boundless universe and gather all the evolvers together, we must first start here in the Yang realm. A rotting great cosmos-level being said. After reaching a preliminary consensus, everyone felt that it was necessary to act swiftly and decisively. They quickly pushed forward and realized unifying the world as soon as possible. The problem was, after reaching a preliminary consensus, who and which orthodoxy would be the leader. Some people looked at Jiui and the Dog Emperor. These were the current top powerhouses. Others looked at the short old man who had revived from the famed mountain and created the scripture of time. This was also a terrifying existence. There were also people who looked at the black shadow in the darkness. They suspected that he was a true fallen immortal king. No need to look at us. We don't belong to this era. We are all former losers. We have nothing to fight for in this world, Jiui said. He was very clear. He and the Dog Emperor were going to search for the old monsters from the last few eras. When needed, they could stand out and help, but they would not personally participate in this kind of unification. He felt that there was no need to fight for a position with the younger generation. I'm still very young and in my prime. I think that this era should be me becoming the Celestial Emperor. The Dog Emperor was eager to try. He was quite dissatisfied with Jiui. He wanted to be the Celestial Emperor. Do you have any shame? Jiui said unhappily. How improper. A dog like you has the nerve to fight for the Celestial Emperor's position? The rotting corpse also berated with a look of disdain. However, in the end, he put on a sullen face and said, I think that I can give it a try. Scram! The Dog Emperor was indignant. He glared at the rotting corpse, then looked at the crowd and said, Thinking of my relatives, the 3 Celestial Emperors, they are either my brothers or my friends. Now it's my turn. Otherwise, how would I have the face to walk in this world? I have to fight for the Celestial Emperor's position, no matter what. The rotting corpse didn't back down and said, I am also good friends with the 3 Celestial Emperors. Moreover, the person that old man respects the most is my brother. With such a divine halo on me, if I don't become the Celestial Emperor in this era, it will be too embarrassing. I won't have the face to see the 4 Celestial Emperors in the future. The Dog Emperor's face and neck were red. He stretched out a big dog paw and pointed at him. You want to fight with me? Jiui looked at the man and dog and really wanted to slap them to death. How could they be so embarrassing in front of a group of juniors? The Celestial Emperor's position isn't obtained by shouting, it's obtained by fighting, and it's also obtained by being respected and chosen by the world. Both of you, shut up. Jiui couldn't take it anymore. After his serious advice, the Dog Emperor and the rotting corpse retreated for the time being. Since Senior is giving us a chance, this untalented junior is willing to fight for the Celestial Emperor's position. It was the Feather Emperor. He was the first to step forward to fight for the position. Some people had peculiar expressions. He was the martial uncle of the Yong Prefecture's overlord. His bloodline had always been striving to unify the Yang realm and had been fighting for it for so many years. It was normal for him to step forward now. One had to know that even his martial nephew, the Yong Prefecture's overlord, had the qualifications to fight for the Yang realm's throne in the past. Not to mention this person in front of him, known as the undefeated Feather Emperor, a legend among prehistoric legends, one of the most stunning and powerful people of this era. At this moment, the entire Yang realm was paying attention to the 2-realm battlefield. On a famed mountain, Qin Luoyin was astonished. She hadn't expected this old friend to be the first to fight for the position. But after thinking about it carefully, this was his style. My Yuan tribe also wants to fight. At this time, the rotten Yuan tribe Great Cosmos realm being spoke with great confidence. Yao Yao frowned. Ever since she saw these people from the Yuan race, she felt that something was wrong and found it difficult to have a good impression of them. Chu Feng's expression turned cold. He hadn't told Yao Yao the truth yet because he was afraid that something unexpected would happen. After all, the Yuan race was too powerful. He was afraid that they would harm her at all costs after learning of Yao Yao's background. The Yuan race was the family that had caused the death of Yao Yao's ancestor. They had caused all of Yao Yao's children to wither and even caused Yao Yao's grandfather to wander in the lesser Yin realm and have his flesh and blood planted with gold. The Yuan race? Someone whispered in deep astonishment. This was indeed a terrifying family with unfathomable power. However, there were rumors that they might be related to beings from beyond the heavens. If it wasn't the strange beings from the sacrificial ground, then it was some other unfathomable power. My Yuan race was born in this world, so we naturally have to do our part for the heavens. Don't worry, my race will definitely be helpful in unifying the world, because we still have clansmen in other realms and immortal kings overseeing things. The Yuan clan's rotten cosmic creature said something like that. This made many people gasp. Was he showing off his muscles? He was indeed terrifyingly powerful. Some people understood that they had to fight if they had the power. That was because it was rumored that the Celestial Emperor's position had boundless benefit. Whether it was relying on one's own strength, the heavenly selection, or the chosen person, it would form a mysterious attraction that would make the chosen person walk toward the true position. In short, this position was extremely beneficial for evolution. Those who fought for the throne might actually become emperors in the future. Chu Feng walked out. After seeing the Yuan race's situation, he absolutely wouldn't allow them to ascend to the throne and become emperors. Little friend, what do you want to do? An old man from Zhou Shi's family asked kindly. What do you think I look like, old man? Some people say that I was born a celestial emperor and that my appearance is similar to the most powerful celestial emperor in history. Chu Feng spoke proudly as if this was a matter of course. Everyone was dumbstruck. Some people felt that he was too shameless. However, there were people whose hearts were trembling as they stared at his face non-stop. End of this chapter. Chapter 1563. There really were people who locked onto Chu Feng and stared at him deeply. This wasn't the first time for the Dog Emperor. In fact, when they first met, this dog had already been startled. Now, it looked at him carefully and mumbled for a long time. Today, Chu Feng mentioned it himself. This naturally caused the dog's hair to stand on end and its body to tense up. Indeed, similar, the Dog Emperor mumbled. Then, it began to curse, but its voice was almost inaudible. It was a bit dissatisfied with Chu Feng and really wanted to slap him to death. However, it was afraid that it would really cause trouble. Apart from it, the decayed corpse was also in a daze. Nine Dowie was also a bit uncertain and had a complicated expression. As for the others, they naturally didn't believe it. They all felt that this youth was shameless and boasting too much. He was too shameless. Chu Feng wasn't afraid at all and was quite calm. After saying this, he glanced at Long Yu and said, "What do you think?" Long Yu rolled his eyes. He wanted to say that if a human trafficker like him could become a celestial emperor, he would be almost the same. Count me in and fight for it. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "I'll take the blame for you and bear the infamy for you. I feel that the celestial emperor position should be given to me." Even one of his own people was tearing him down. This left the others speechless. Chu Feng really wanted to send him flying with a kick. This shameless toad and shameless strange dragon were really asking for a beating. Old Gu, what do you think? As a celestial emperor, can I stand at the peak of this era? Chu Feng asked Old Gu. Although Old Gu was quite old, he still had rosy lips and white teeth. His appearance was quite outstanding, but he was a bit old-fashioned. He said, "I feel that you're not suitable." Another one was tearing him down. The expressions on the surrounding people's faces were quite interesting. Even the people on this young devil's side didn't approve of him becoming a celestial emperor. "I feel that you can become a second generation. There's no need to fight now and fight to the death. Why bother?" Old Gu said. "To hell with your second generation." Chu Feng cut off all ties with him. What kind of people were they? They were all against him. Old Gu said, "I think that with the Feather Emperor and that rotten monster from the Yuan race competing, your chances aren't high. It would be better to let my big brother become Celestial Emperor Li." Secretly, Li Su nodded. He really wanted to stretch out a big black hand and touch the back of Old Gu's head. However, in the next moment, he wanted to slap Old Gu's head into a dog's head. "After my big brother passes away, you will inherit the throne, and the inheritance will be in order. You won't have to work so hard. At the same time, the 2 generations of Sky Emperors are my brothers, and we are all family. I can also live more freely. To hell with the order of inheritance. Did it know how to speak human language? 100 years later? Li Su's eyes were unkind. I am immortal for thousands of generations. Chu Feng sternly refuted Elder Gu and said, could it be that whoever is temporarily stronger will be the Celestial Emperor? If that's the case, then it naturally belongs to Senior Jiu Dao Yi. However, he obviously declined and said that he would leave the opportunity to the young people of this era. The old seniors who are too old shouldn't take the stage. He then added, therefore, at this critical moment of life and death, when the world is about to collapse, I will go against the current and not care about my life to sit on the most dangerous throne. If I don't become the emperor, who will? What did he mean? Was he saying that the others were old? So, he didn't want to pass on the responsibility? Old Gu and the rotten cosmos creature didn't look happy. The rotten cosmos level expert of the Yuan race coldly glanced at him and said, in this era, we are at the peak of our glory and rise and fall. Facing this person, Chu Feng wasn't polite at all because he was destined to be his mortal enemy. You're really too old. Look carefully, your body is rotten. You should go back and rest, Chu Feng said. The decayed corpse and the Dog King felt their teeth aching. Their bodies were also rotting due to time and the wounds their enemies had inflicted on them. The man and the dog thought that this damned kid didn't know how to talk. Jiu Dao Yi nodded in agreement with Chu Feng's words. That makes sense. Young people have more vigor and potential. The others naturally wouldn't give up. What a joke. How could they give up the Celestial Emperor's position to a young kid? At the same time, they knew that Jiu Dao Yi wouldn't be too biased. After all, this matter was too important. You're just a junior who hasn't cultivated for many years. How dare you covet the Celestial Emperor's position? You think too much. Someone coldly rebuked. An old Gu who was on good terms with the Yuan race didn't give Chu Feng any face. What did I do? Chu Feng said, when I was fighting in the Soul River, were you all eating dirt? Where did you all hide? However, he didn't want to expose himself just yet. Otherwise, the strange and ominous creatures might find a chance to kill him first. I alone can beat everyone at the same level. Chu Feng raised his brows. Then, he looked around and said, actually, I don't really need the Celestial Emperor's position, but I definitely won't allow a family like the Yuan race, who might have sided with the strange creatures, to take it. In the end, the Celestial Emperor's position is won through fighting. If the old ones aren't convinced, go find Senior Jiu Dao Yi. If the older ones aren't convinced, go find Black Sholi. If you're not convinced, go find Yao Yao and me. His shout was quite domineering. This made everyone's teeth hurt. If they thought about it carefully, the people he listed were all troublesome and difficult to deal with. Are young people this crazy these days? The Yuan race's rotation level expert coldly looked at Chu Feng. Yeah, if we don't go crazy, we'll all be old, Chu Feng said shamelessly. When he said this, he looked like a handsome young man. Many people wanted to beat him to death. Look at you. How dare you say the word old? You're just trying to piss people off. At this time, Long Diu nodded and stopped tearing him down. Old Gu also raised his head and said, yeah, this belongs to the younger generation. If we don't go crazy, we'll really be old. Many people knew his origins and knew that he was Li Su's sworn brother. An old antique actually dared to pretend to be young? However, it just so happened that old Gu had red lips and white teeth. He was truly a handsome young man. The Zhou clan's famed elder, Zhou Bo, was from the same generation as old Gu. At this time, he looked at the sky and sighed. Surnamed Gu, you shameless bastard. If you don't go old, we'll really go crazy. Some people's mouths twitched as they felt the same way. This No race member from back then was actually becoming younger and younger. It was truly enviable, and his high profile naturally attracted even more jealousy. Boom! Suddenly, heaven-shocking energy fluctuations transmitted over. A bird flew over, its size not large, but it shook up the two realms' battlefield, descending abruptly. My fourth tribulation sparrow race wants to fight for the celestial emperor's position, the bird said. It emitted terrifying light and its aura was terrifying. Many people were horrified. This was definitely an immortal bird at the true immortal level, and it was only the representative of a race. It definitely wasn't its strongest expert. The fourth tribulation sparrow race from the 11th forbidden area of the Yang realm? Someone cried out in alarm. The fourth tribulation sparrows were too famous. It was rumored that their clansmen had lived through 4 great eras and had a long inheritance. That was why they were known as the fourth tribulation sparrows. However, that legendary ancestor wasn't in this world of the Yang realm. Instead, he resided in another place. In reality, their stronghold in the Yang realm, the so-called 11th forbidden area, was no longer there. It had been pierced through by a streak of sword light, and even the old nests of other realms were implicated. Their clansmen were almost completely wiped out. Cold light flashed through the eyes of the 9 realms. Old Gu's killing intent was stirred for the first time. Who had almost completely wiped out the fourth tribulation sparrows. It was naturally the first mountain. However, back then, a few forbidden areas had teamed up to probe the first mountain. They took the initiative to attack and destroy that place. In the end, they hadn't expected that the traces left behind by that supreme existence were still there. At the crucial moment, a streak of sword light swept through the sky and swept through all enemies. It pierced through those forbidden areas and reached other great worlds, annihilating countless enemies. If it wasn't for the fact that the fourth tribulation sparrows and the other clansmen had all died, not to mention perfected immortals, even their ancestors who had lived for 4 great eras would be beheaded if they crawled out of their graves. The people of the chaotic abyss will also fight for it. The silent destruction ridge will also fight for the position of celestial emperor. How can the star feather heaven not fight for the position of celestial emperor? As expected, the people related to the forbidden areas came one after another. Back then, the few forbidden areas that attacked the first mountain where the 9 realms was located were all destroyed by that streak of sword light. Almost all of their clansmen were turned into ashes. Now, some of these experts were lucky to survive outside, and some were experts who had rushed over from other great worlds. That was because these forbidden areas were connected to real great worlds, and many nests were built outside the Yang realm. The 9 realms expression wasn't very good. The clans that had lived for 4 great eras and the other clans weren't simple people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to probe the first mountain. However, he wasn't afraid. He was just unhappy with these clans. These clans didn't make any contributions and were suspected to be colluding with ominous beings. How dare they come to fight for the position of celestial emperor? The 9 realms' killing intent was revealed. Dong! A huge metal cudgel appeared and almost smashed the fourth tribulation sparrow away. A sky-reaching violent ape descended, towering between heaven and earth. Little bird, scram to the side. I suspect that you are related to those strange beings. Scram! The big monkey with golden fur roared in a rather domineering manner. Everyone's expressions froze. This was a powerful clan, the 6-eared macaque race. Even the dog emperor's body shook. It was sure that this was the descendant of its good brother, the sacred emperor. The bloodline of that monkey had been left behind. In fact, during the battle at the Soul River not long ago, the sacred emperor's weapon had flown out of the 6-eared macaque race's ancestral land to participate in the battle. In the end, the sacred emperor's remnant spirit was completely destroyed. In the process, it exhausted everything to protect its brother and tried to save its son, the little sacred ape who had become a corpse. Good, good, good. The dog emperor said the word good 3 times. Recently, it and the rotten corpse had been trying to find a way to save the little sacred ape, so now that it saw its descendant again, it was naturally excited and happy. Chu Feng grinned and also smiled because he saw other members of the six-eared macaque race arrive, including an old friend and acquaintance. It was Mi Tian, the young six-eared macaque. Chu Feng had met Mi Tian and his sister on the three-way battlefield. "Great Sin, come here." Chu Feng called out to the young six-eared macaque. "Great Sin my ass." Mi Tian stared at him. The only one who could call him this nickname was Chowda of the past, and it was because of the word Great Sin that Chowda called him. "You are Chowda?" Mi Tian's fiery golden eyes stared at this strange yet familiar guy. Chu Feng smiled like a flower bud as he waved at him and said, "This time, us four great beauties have finally reunited. It's the first time we've been so complete." Mi Tian did not regard himself as an outsider and strode over. However, what the hell was this four great beauties? He was dumbfounded. Had he heard Chowda mention this before? "Come, let me introduce you. This is Old Gu Chen Hai, also known as Gu Dahai. This is Long Du, the strange dragon. I am Chu Feng, Chowda, and Ji Dade." Chu Feng introduced them to Mi Tian. All around, many people were dumbfounded. Ji Dade, Chowda, they were all him? All of them had caused great disasters and committed world-shaking crimes, yet they were all the same person? This is the great heaven, and it can also be called a great sin. Chu Feng introduced again, as if he didn't care about the other's shock. "So, great virtue, Dahai, great dragon, and great sin, today is the first time us four great beauties have reunited." Chu Feng smiled brightly. Four great beauties. Many people wanted to spit on his face. End of this chapter. Chapter 1564. Four great beauties? Look at your little faces, how cocky are you guys? Everyone cursed silently. Even Nine Dowie found them an eyesore and wanted to slap them. Of all the names, why did they come up with four great beauties? No matter how they looked at it, it didn't make sense. The dog emperor gritted his teeth and stared at Chu Feng's face. He really wanted to clean up his family and kill this brat. He felt that he couldn't afford to lose that face. Li Su looked at old Gu and secretly gritted his teeth. He was a little unhappy. At such an old age, his brother was actually called a great beauty? Li Su was annoyed. If old Gu was one of the great beauties, how should he address him as his brother? There's no helping it. We're peerless beauties. Old Gu smiled hatefully like a tender flower bud. This caused the old monsters of the same generation to grit their teeth and feel very uncomfortable. That was because their lifespans were almost dried up. "Me beauty." The strange dragon's eyes were wide open. He felt that it was unreliable and a little embarrassing. Before this, he had never thought of becoming a member of the heavenly group mentioned by Chu Feng. As for the monkey, he was even more dumbfounded. He felt uncomfortable all over, and all the golden monkey fur on his body stood up. What the hell? One of the four great beauties? He was a little dumbfounded. Chu Feng said, "Monkey, don't stare. Do you know who I am? Chu Feng will be the #1 person in history. Don't look for me if you miss this opportunity." He then glared at the strange dragon and said, "O Yang Feng, I remember how carefree we were back in the lesser Yin realm. We could move unhindered between the heavens and the earth. There were only a few of us, but we dared to challenge everyone in the starry sky. Now, do you want to part ways with me?" Those days with the human traffickers were indeed carefree, but the ending was tragic. They wanted me to die a tragic death and reincarnate back to the world of the living. The strange dragon mumbled. Many people heard it and were speechless. However, the strange dragon agreed without hesitation. In fact, the strange dragon had eaten the grass of the 33 heavens and lived more than one life. He was a little fatalistic. Although his heart was pounding, he instinctively chose Chu Feng. Moreover, he gritted his teeth and said, "I was called Ouyang Feng in the lesser Yin realm. I was called Long Diu in the Yang realm. From now on, I'll be called Ouyang Dalong. He even changed his name, which made many old monsters grin when they heard it. As for the dumbfounded monkey, he was completely coerced. Qiming miraculously became a member of the organization. Go away, disappear for me. Nine Dowie couldn't bear to watch any longer. He really didn't want to see the so-called four great beauties. What a scandal! He definitely didn't want them to compete for the so-called Celestial Emperor. Chu Feng grimaced in pain. It was just a reunion with an old friend. Just because they were known as the four great beauties, they were going to lose their celestial monarch fruit throne? Of course, he did not have to sit in that position. With his current strength, he knew very well that it was meaningless for him to sit in that position now. He just wanted to stop the Yuan tribe from ascending to the throne. Although I am a virtuous person and have fate with the position of Sky Emperor, I am willing to give it up. I hope to reform and give the position of Sky Emperor to the most suitable person. Chu Feng said righteously. The other person he had recommended was actually Yao Yao. Yao Yao smiled faintly. She had bright eyes and white teeth. She was ethereal and brilliant, but she tactfully declined. She didn't need the throne. She had her own path of evolution to walk. Yao Yao looked ethereal and otherworldly, but she had a resolute and courageous heart. In this great era, she had to fight her own way. The Celestial Emperor Fruit Throne isn't something you brats can covet. You even dare talk about it. Are you worthy? What qualifications do you have? The Yuan tribe's rotten great cosmos-level expert waved his sleeve and chased them away indifferently. Since he saw that Nine Dowie was dissatisfied with Chu Feng, he naturally took advantage of the situation and mercilessly expelled Chu Feng and the others. Those who had come here to fight for the throne were all powerful races. Some were even the most powerful hegemonic clans that dominated other world. For example, if the primogenitor of the fourth tribulation sparrow race was alive, she would be absolutely terrifying and heaven-defying. She could even shake Nine Dowie's current power. And the Yuan tribe was confident because their ancient ancestor was still alive. Thus, the current Yuan tribe's rotten great cosmos-level expert was full of confidence. Of course, the Yuan tribe's primogenitor, who had witnessed the Celestial Emperor's rise, wasn't in the Yang realm. Instead, he was in seclusion in another great realm. Chu Feng sneered. He wasn't afraid of the Yuan tribe. He had originally come to stir things up, but now he had some thoughts. That was because he had really thought of a person who would be very suitable if he didn't consider combat power and only wanted to recommend someone. Chu Feng said, Yuan tribe, you don't have the qualifications to rely on a foreign race. Your virtue doesn't match your position. Speaking of which, I really do have a good candidate, but there's no rush. Let's wait for everyone to select a candidate, and then we'll take a look at this senior I mentioned. Everyone had odd expressions. This was indeed very Chu Feng, very Jidade, and very Chao Da. Everyone understood what kind of person he was after finding out his roots, and that the degeneration was all him. At the scene, some people's eyes were burning with anger. For example, the human King Mo family had been tricked miserably by Jidade in the past. Not only did they lose two core disciples at the heaven-bound immortal waterfall, but they also received a fierce counterattack from Chu Feng and the strange dragon. The human King Mo family's mountain gate had been flattened by Chu Feng and the strange dragon. At this time, several more waves of experts arrived, led by the Yang realm's orthodoxies. The Heng race was known as the strongest race in the Yang realm. After arriving, they actually voiced their support for the undefeated Feather Emperor and supported him in seizing the throne. The Buddhist race also came. This time, they didn't keep a low profile at all. They actually wanted to push out a monk emperor. This race had never revealed themselves, but it was rumored that the Buddhist race's kindling had existed for countless eras. Once they recovered, their strength would be unimaginable. That was why they came out to fight for the throne. Their aura wasn't any weaker than the Hung race, who appeared to be the number one race on the surface. Then, the Dao race, the Ji race, the Li race, and the other top 10 races in the Yang realm actually came together. It was a little unexpected, and they wanted to choose one person to fight for the throne. The Celestial Emperor's position moved people's hearts, and the races couldn't sit still anymore. For a time, the Yang realm was in heated discussion. All races were paying attention to the two-realm battlefield, and the world was boiling. However, something suddenly happened in the two-realm battlefield that shocked many people. The martial madman is dead. The martial emperor actually died. This is one of the most tyrannical people in the Yang realm. He's extremely powerful, but he actually died here just like that? The person known as the martial emperor in the prehistoric era had actually died today. He died in front of many people, and it directly caused a huge uproar. His corpse lay motionless on the ground. The creator of the scripture of time had revived from the famed mountains. He was short, and people still didn't know his name. They only knew that he might be an immortal king who wanted to take the martial madman as a Tao child. Now, the martial madman had died in his hands, and his head had been crushed. "This old man is Tsang-gu," the short old man said. His real name was Tsang-gu, and even his name gave people a feeling of the passage of time. "I actually failed today." Tsang-gu was indifferent and emotionless. "The martial madman is dead. It's too inconceivable, but it's a bit tragic." After the shock, people couldn't help but exclaim, "Even though it happened in front of me, I still can't believe it." Even Tsang-gu was deeply shocked, and his eyes were wide open. Such a powerful martial emperor had actually ended up like this. To everyone's surprise, the short old man who revived from the famed mountains had a cold expression on his face. He threw away the martial madman's corpse and opened the terrifying vertical eye between his brows. A terrifying beam of light shot out and scanned the sky and earth. He sighed faintly and said, "Interesting. It's not simple to escape from my hands. You've even mastered an ancient technique like the cicada shedding its carapace. It seems that you have another immortal body, and this is just an old body that you shed." He actually said such words. Didn't he crush the martial madman's head and leave his corpse lying on the ground? When he said he failed, he didn't mean that he killed the martial madman, but that the martial madman had escaped. Could it be that the martial emperor has successfully escaped? After all, the martial emperor was a great savage from the prehistoric era, and his strength was already at the ultimate level. Evidently, Tsang-gu, the creator of the scripture of time, had crushed the martial emperor's head because he had sensed that the martial emperor was about to escape. He wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The vertical eye between Tsang-gu's brows was extremely terrifying. The beam of light pierced through the void and swept across the entire universe. Finally, he followed a special aura and looked towards the extreme north. His eyes were like stars in the darkness, shining brightly and revealing the truth. The extreme north, where the martial madman was cultivating in seclusion, was illuminated by the time runes of Tsang-gu's vertical eye. Even the people in the two-realm battlefield could see it. Such a terrifying technique was extremely terrifying. It could illuminate the scene millions of miles away. The people saw the martial madman's afterimage gradually turning blurry. He tore apart the heaven and earth and calmly left the world of the living. "I, the martial emperor, will eventually break through everything. In the future, I will return invincibly." Those were his final words. Boom. Then, the people saw the extreme north burn. His Tao arena had turned into ruined flames, and all traces and auras had disappeared. In reality, the martial madman had already left when Tsang-gu's vertical eye shone there. What he saw was merely a retrace of history. Interesting. He severed time and left behind a few old and rotten bodies. His true body escaped from my sight. Even Tsang-gu couldn't find traces of the martial madman. Time could no longer be traced. Within the flames, several rotten corpses were burning. It was as if they had died in place of the martial madman, severing all karma. Chu Feng drew in a breath of cold air. He had been to the extreme north and raided the martial madman's lair. There, he had seen a prisoner who looked similar to the martial madman in one of the black prisons. At that time, he had other conjectures. Now, he finally understood that the martial madman had shed his old body. It was like a golden cicada shedding its skin, and it was a supreme technique. Even the martial emperor caught by Tsanggu was only an old body that had been abandoned. It wasn't his true body, so it didn't affect him much even if he was crushed. After his true spirit escaped, he had returned to his true body. For a moment the world was silent. Everyone was quite shocked. The martial madman had actually succeeded in escaping from an immortal king. This was truly extraordinary. This was because, from their point of view, not many people in this world could escape Tsanggu's control since he had the scripture of time and was an immortal king himself. After a while, a few more groups of people arrived. Only then did the storm of the martial emperor severing his karma and leaving the world of the living pass. Chu Feng had made up his mind to go against the Yuan clan. He wouldn't leave even if 9 Daoi chased him away. He insisted on saying a name. The blood of an emperor flows in his body. These simple words stimulated many people. Even the dog emperor's eyes were opened so wide that they were about to split open. The black fur on his body stood on end. He was very sensitive. He's a descendant of the celestial emperor. Chu Feng spoke again. At this time, even 9 Daoi didn't chase him away. His heart was slightly shaken. Who is it? Where is he? The bloodline of the celestial emperor. Is there still someone alive in this world? The dog emperor trembled. His turbid old eyes were actually hot and moist. He was trembling with unease and excitement. The decayed corpse's emotions were also fluctuating violently. He said, "The 3 celestial emperors have descendants alive? Why can't we sense them? We've been looking for them for many years." "Many people have betrayed him," Chu Feng said solemnly. Chapter 1565. This clan was once brilliant and powerful. Their brilliance illuminated the past and present. The great achievements of their ancestors are difficult to count. It could be said that their achievements are greater than the heavens. They killed the inauspicious, cut down the strange, suppressed the world, and dyed the heavens red with blood. As a celestial emperor, their whereabouts are still unknown. They spent their entire lives in battle, and no one knows whether they are dead or alive. Chu Feng's voice was gentle and not loud as he slowly talked about some old events. Perhaps more than 90% of the people in the world didn't know that such a celestial emperor had once existed. Even the so-called super-evolved sects might not know all of them. Only true immortals, ultimate beings, and tyrannical races like the Hung clan and the Dao clan could immediately understand who he was talking about. That was the brilliance of the past era. Who is he talking about? Many great clans and orthodoxies across the world of the living were using special divine lamps, bone mirrors, and runic divine walls to show the true situation of the two-realm battlefield. People from all over could see what was happening. However, many young people didn't understand who Chu Feng was talking about. He's talking about the Celestial Emperor. His invincible and glorious era has gone far away in the passage of time. It's already been more than one era. In the future, there will no longer be such a powerful and invincible celestial emperor. A rotting cosmic level being said. It wasn't that there weren't people who claimed to be emperors in the future, but it was just a flash in the pan. They didn't have a true celestial emperor, so no one acknowledged them. The true celestial emperor had gone far away, or perhaps it was better to say that he had disappeared and could no longer be seen in the heavens. That celestial emperor's achievements were unprecedented. Even his own son was rumored to have either died in battle or disappeared. Among the imperial princes, only one bloodline remained. Due to their injuries, they were unable to fight. In the end, they wandered into the world of the living, barely continuing the celestial emperor's bloodline so that it wouldn't be severed. How regretful and how tragic the battle was. The imperial princes fought until only one of them was left. They weakened from their injuries and lived in seclusion in the world of the living. The celestial emperor's bloodline was almost completely severed. That surviving imperial prince still died in the end. Such a peerless bloodline, such unfathomable strength, but in the end, he died from his injuries. When it heard this, the dog emperor's body trembled. It didn't believe it. It was certain that there were still imperial princes and princesses in this world. It was just that it didn't know where they were now. Perhaps he had gone to the azure. The dog emperor guessed, because it could not accept the tragic reality Chu Feng had described. After the imperial prince passed away, his descendants never borrowed the prestige of their ancestors to become prominent in the human world. Instead, they concealed their identities and became an ordinary race, permanently residing in the human world. It's been more than a single great era. They have participated in all types of great battles. Whenever there is a great calamity, they will always stand out and face the enemy with all of their strength. Therefore, their numbers gradually thinned out and they completely declined. Even their emperor techniques were almost completely lost, and their inheritance was severely broken. They were so low profile, so obscure, yet they were still targeted by others. There were actually people who coveted them in secret, wishing to hunt them down. In the end, someone took action against them, wishing to seize the Emperor artifact fragment, wishing to search for the Heavenly Emperor's methods and mysteries, viciously targeting this clan. Chu Feng recounted what had really happened in that tribe. He had learned all of it from that old man. There were some who knew, because they had all vaguely heard about this before. There were even some ultimate creatures who knew about this race's past. For a period of time, there was only one person left from this clan. It was such a bitter and desolate scene. He was still alive, but his heart had long since died. His name was Yushang. Finally, Chu Feng revealed this name. At this time, the dog emperor's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth, and the fur on his body stood on end. The rotten corpse's body also exuded an indescribable aura. His entire body was filled with baleful energy, as if he wanted to tear apart the heavens and destroy everything. Senior Yushang once had 2 sons and a daughter, all of them stunning the world of the living. One was ranked within the top 3 of the Divine King rankings, and the other was unrivaled among his peers. But in the end, what happened? They all died, all killed by the Yuan clan. Chu Feng directly pointed out the Yuan clan as the main culprit. Even if this race was unfathomably deep and ridiculously strong, and there were suspected to be primogenitors in the great worlds outside the world of the living, as well as inconceivable existences who had witnessed the Heavenly Emperor, Chu Feng felt that with 9 Daoi, the Dog Emperor, and the rotten corpse present, they should be able to intimidate them and protect the Yushang bloodline. After all, this might be the only remaining descendant of the Heavenly Emperor. The Dog Emperor. How could he not go berserk? Which one of you attacked? Do you want to die? The Dog Emperor felt like he was about to explode. The rotten corpse's eyes also revealed a murderous intent. Black smoke surged from his body, but he couldn't understand. He and the Dog Emperor had sensed it before, so why didn't the Heavenly Emperor's bloodline appear? Yao Yao's breathing quickened. She had a premonition of something. "Where is Yushang?" the Dog Emperor asked anxiously. Chu Feng's expression was complicated. Speaking of which, the first time he met the Dog Emperor was on the 3-sided battlefield. At that time, Yushang wasn't far away, but he didn't know the Dog Emperor and missed him. And Chu Feng only understood the legend of the Heavenly Emperor after various events. He understood that the Dog Emperor was his loyal follower. He also learned a few things through Yushang, and only then did he know many things about the Dog Emperor. "Yuan clan, do you want your entire clan to be exterminated?" The Dog Emperor was enraged. His true body descended from the sky and directly attacked the scene. His enormous body towered between heaven and earth, extremely intimidating. Even though all of his dog fur had fallen off and some parts were bare, emitting an aura of decay, it was still shocking. This was a dog that had followed the heavenly emperor. Moreover, it had followed more than one heavenly emperor. Yuan clan, I'll crush you to death. He had his eyes on the Yuan clan in front of the two-realm battlefield. The Yuan clan was a famous clan in the Yang realm, strong enough to rank among the top 10 inheritances. This didn't even include their foundations in the other great worlds, which should be even stronger and more terrifying. After all, rumor had it that their true ancestor was in seclusion in outer space, not in the Yang realm. The Yuan clan before him were all elite. They could even be considered the Yuan clan's highest fighting power in the Yang realm. Among them was a rotting great cosmos-level entity. This Yuan clan expert had achieved the Tao in recent times and was known as the most powerful person in recent times. Back then, he was the one who led the plan against the Yuan clan. Those who were exterminated, and those who were banished to the lesser En realm were exiled. There was also a member of the Yuan clan who had become an ultimate entity in prehistoric times. He was the most ancient and powerful entity of the Yang realm. Besides these two, the Yuan clan's almighty experts and celestial venerables were also present. Comparatively speaking, these people were nothing compared to the most powerful great cosmos entity in recent times and the old ultimate entity. The Dog Emperor's large eyes locked onto all of them. The rotting corpse had also arrived, and its murderous aura covered tens of thousands of miles. The usually smiling dog was now in charge of killing. The Dog Emperor stretched out a large paw and stabbed at the two Yuan clan experts. It didn't discriminate, and its huge, sharp claws covered every inch of the area. Its movements were very slow. If it weren't for the fact that it had something to ask, it would have stabbed these people to death. During this process, the Dog Emperor once again asked Chu Feng, "Where's Yushang? Fellow Taoist, please have mercy." At this time, a shout came from beyond the sky. A large purple-gold hand reached out and pierced through the sky, blocking the Dog Emperor's large paw. In reality, the Yuan clan's great cosmos realm expert, Yuan Qing, who was known to be peerless since ancient times, and the old ultimate entity from prehistoric times, Yuan Luan, were also hiding. They were very powerful, so how could they allow themselves to be captured? However, facing the enraged Dog Emperor, they discovered that their bodies were actually trembling. They were imprisoned in the field and couldn't break free. If it weren't for the shout from beyond the realm stopping the Dog Emperor, the two of them would have given up all hope and felt that they would die without a doubt. "Who dares to stop me?" The rotting corpse shouted as he strode forward. His right hand slapped out toward the purple-gold hand in the sky. "Fellow Taoist, please have mercy." Apart from the previous voice, someone else spoke up. This person also came from beyond the realm and tore through the sky. One could vaguely see that it was a divine sparrow that emitted the Tao aura of at least an immortal king. It was hazy and terrifying as it illuminated the world. A terrifying existence from the fourth tribulation sparrow race. Someone recognized it and drew in a breath of cold air. "Senior, you asked me where Yushang is. Is this situation all right?" Chu Feng asked. He was afraid that the powerhouses from beyond the Yang realm would make things difficult for him. "No problem." Nine Daoi spoke as he prepared to attack. "Don't move. Let me do it myself." The Dog Emperor was furious. He had once followed Celestial Emperor, but now, was it really true that a fallen phoenix was inferior to a chicken? He was old and his vitality had declined. In the end, some of the surviving powerful races wanted to oppose him with equal harshness. He temporarily withdrew his large claws and stared fixedly at the outer realm. He sensed several powerful auras. In a certain place in the Yang realm, Ziluan ran excitedly and frantically toward a tranquil farmland. She shouted, "Senior Yushang, guess what news I've heard? Yao Yao, it's suspected that Sister Yao Yao has appeared in the Yang realm, in the two-realm battlefield. What? That child? Didn't she fall into the little Yin realm's great abyss? Yu Shang immediately sat up from the rattan chair and rushed out of the courtyard. He was trembling and his emotions were fluctuating violently. They still didn't know about the upheaval that had occurred in the two-realm battlefield. However, Yu Shang couldn't help but want to leave the mountain to find Yao Yao and see that child. At this moment, many young people from various orthodoxies in the Yang realm were puzzled. Who was the celestial emperor mentioned in front of the two-realm battlefield? That was because, after a long period of time, no one knew about the celestial emperor of the past and their unrivaled achievements. Many people and matters were covered under the dust of time. For the first time, some elders and clan leaders began to mention it to the younger generation today. They recounted some vague rumors that they vaguely knew. After countless years, the celestial emperor was once again recounted in bits and pieces of his past. In front of the two-realm battlefield, the dog emperor was furious. He felt that he had been provoked. This wasn't just obstructing him, but also disrespectful to celestial emperor. He had persecuted celestial emperor's descendants, yet he still dared to target and obstruct him? Dao friend, there's no need to be angry. There's nothing we can't let go of, someone said calmly in the outer realm. F***ck off. I'll see who dares to obstruct where this emperor's vanguard is directed. He shook his body, and in a split second, 6 distinctive dog hairs fell down. They turned into 6 beams of black light and broke through the sky. Moreover, the dog emperor stopped 9 Dowie and the rotten corpse because he wanted to give it a try himself. In a moment, in the outer realm, wind and thunder rumbled, and the divine sound of the great Tao was deafening. The 6 hairs turned into 6 streaks of black lightning and disappeared. Not long after, they returned. They all turned into the appearance of the dog emperor and carried a coffin from the depths of the outer realm universe. It was made of bronze and had existed in the world since ancient times. The 6 dog emperors swayed their bodies as they carried the emperor's coffin over. This emperor is borrowing the emperor's weapon to kill people today. Whoever wants to die, get over here, roared the dog emperor's true body. The appearance of the 6 emperors carrying the coffin caused the heavens to fall silent. Chapter 1566. Yu Shang's figure was withered, but he wasn't as pale as before. He was found by Chu Feng a few days after his life was exhausted, and he buried himself in the grave. Chu Feng gave him the soul flower medicine. It was hard to imagine that one of the last few people of Celestial Emperor's bloodline had almost died so miserably. What kind of loneliness, helplessness, and sorrow was this, burying himself beside his children's cenotaph? In reality, he had never been happy in his life. He was miserable. He originally had 3 children, each of whom was exceptionally talented. His family was originally harmonious and warm, but in the end, he was the only one left, a lonely and declining old man. Now, was everything going well after extreme misfortune? He heard Yao Yao's news. That child was actually still alive and had come to the Yang realm. He couldn't sit still any longer. He wanted to go to the two-realm battlefield immediately to meet her. Back then, the only descendant in his branch was subjected to all kinds of cold-blooded experiments by the Yuan race. One of them was planted with mother gold and exiled to the Little Yin realm, becoming the only continuation of his bloodline. Unfortunately, Yao Yao's grandfather, that crazy and muddle-headed old man, was still nowhere to be found. Senior, you have to be careful. There are true immortals and ultimate beings in the two-realm battlefield. I heard people overturn the sky. Your enemies might be there. Zhiluan was worried. But Yu Shang had already made up his mind and insisted on going. He was afraid that something would happen to Yao Yao. If that child died, his life would be meaningless. He felt that he was a sinner of his family. No matter what, he had to leave behind a descendant for Celestial Emperor back then. He couldn't let the Emperor's bloodline end here. The old turtle Jun Tuo's mind was active. He helped to come up with a plan so that he could live a bit longer. But they didn't have time to think too much. Before Yushang could make a move, the sky was split open and emitted a dazzling rain of light. It was ancestral Taoist matter, divinity granules, and terrifying energy that carried radiation properties. Who is it? The great universe-level expert Ji Luan is standing proudly here. The little bird was shivering. Her face was deathly pale and her lips were trembling. She braced herself and shouted. Not to mention her, even Yushang was apprehensive. Who was that? Immortal matter was pouring down. The newcomer couldn't possibly be a match for it. Then, they saw a gigantic, furry dog's paw propping open the sky and reaching down. Where is Yushang? The dog emperor roared. Yushang was frightened at first, then he was startled, because he had seen this huge black beast's claw in the three-way battlefield. Senior, what's the matter? I'm here. Yushang spoke. He shielded Ji Luan and Jun Tuo behind him as he faced them alone. Kid, you've suffered. The dog emperor passed through the crack and revealed a large eye. It was many times larger than a lake, and it was completely red. Hot and humid liquid almost dripped down. How old was Yushang? His lifespan was measured in tens of thousands of years, yet he was now being called a child. This made him speechless. Rumble! In an instant, the sky and earth were turned upside down. The furry big black dog's paw became peaceful, and he brought Yushang and the others away, returning to the two-realm battlefield in an instant. When they saw that there were 3 more people in the field, everyone looked over. Among them were the descendants of the Celestial Emperor. For a moment, everyone's attention was focused on Yushang. Chu Feng let out a long sigh. In the end, nothing unexpected happened. After telling the Dog Emperor the coordinates, it immediately brought them over. His aptitude isn't bad, but why is he only an evolver at the origin realm? The Dog Emperor muttered. The so-called origin realm was an almighty being in the Yang realm. Being despised like this made countless people silent and shut their mouth. How could they endure this? An almighty was actually being looked down upon by a dog like this, not taking it seriously. However, when they thought of the dog's identity, everyone stopped talking. There was nothing to argue about. Yushang grinned, feeling a slight bitterness in his mouth. The reason he could become an almighty was because Chu Feng gave him soul medicines that could prolong his life. If it wasn't for this, he would have already buried himself and died at the celestial venerable realm in despair and gloom. The decayed corpse looked again and said in a cold voice, "There's something wrong with his body. Time runes have been injected into him, and part of his origin has been erased and imprisoned. Needless to say, this is the work of your Yuan clan, right?" I knew it. How could the descendants of the Celestial Emperor be so weak? The Dog Emperor's eyes were scarlet red. He was angry and sad as he stared at the people of the Yuan clan. Meanwhile, in the void, 6 figures like black lightning were carrying the coffin, intimidating the immortal kings of the outer realms in the sky. "Are you all tired of living?" The Dog Emperor roared. At this time, he really blamed himself. How could he let the descendants of the Celestial Emperor fall into such a state? "Do you know who their ancestor is?" he roared, venting the anger and dissatisfaction in his heart. The 3 celestial emperors were so dazzling that they illuminated the ages. After the bloody battle with the source of the strange, the celestial court scattered, and even their descendants fell into such a miserable state? The Dog Emperor was old. When he thought of the heroic spirit of the past, the time when war songs surged, when they swept through the heavens, and then thought of the final ending of the 3 celestial emperors and his group of old brothers, he howled in grief again and again. "Dao friend, please calm your anger. Our clan's juniors didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. They wanted to investigate the Emperor's laws and made a mistake. Please forgive them." In the sky, The Yuan clan giant who had reached out with a large purple-gold hand was clearly a true immortal king. Now, he lowered his stance and spoke softly here. Get lost. The Dog Emperor was immediately angered. What kind of state had Yushang's bloodline fallen into? What nonsense was there to talk about forgiveness? Dang. In that instant, the copper coffin trembled violently. The massive coffin lid flew up, rushing into the sky, erupting with blinding and cold radiance. This was the Emperor coffin. Last time, during the Soul River Great Battle, it had appeared abruptly and revealed the figure of one of the 3 celestial emperors. He participated in that incomparable battle and fought to the death. In the end, the emperor's figure disappeared, but the coffin was left behind. The Dog Emperor, the rotten corpse, and the bald man boarded the coffin and left. Now, the Dog Emperor was furious to the extreme. He felt that the 4 Tribulation Sparrow and Yuan clan were bullying him because he was old. His blood energy dried up, and he was about to die. As a result, they were disrespectful to the Celestial Emperor and humiliated his descendants. That was why he directly sacrificed the coffin regardless of the price. When this coffin appeared, all of the true immortals and ultimate creatures' faces became pale. They trembled in fear, and many of them fell weakly onto the ground. They couldn't bear it at all. Even the outer realm's immortal kings lacked color. They almost wanted to flee at the sight of the wind. They couldn't control their bodies at all. Some ancient memories, some glorious legends, directly appeared in their minds. It was rumored that this coffin created the Celestial Emperor, creating an unmatched existence in this world. It was his Tao object. Even if great eras changed and endless years passed, there was no way those at the true immortal level and above wouldn't be unaware of that Celestial Emperor. When they thought of his unmatched reputation, how could they not feel fear? It was to the extent where there were rumors that he had always been lying in the Emperor coffin, currently recovering from his injuries. Once he reappeared in this world, he would be an existence that could kill the most powerful creatures. What kind of expert could kill the most powerful? Only those who reached the apex of the supreme path could reach that level. That was why when the bronze coffin lid rushed into the heavens, the 4 Tribulation Sparrow decisively fled, avoiding the shockwaves this time. It didn't turn around again, let alone take the initiative to stir up trouble again. The Yuan clan's immortal king also evaded. He didn't dare face the bronze coffin lid head-on. The Dog Emperor was furious. You dare run? I don't believe you can leave the heavens. If this emperor doesn't smash you to pieces, I will chase you down to the heavens and into the earth. Everyone was speechless. This lord was too domineering. Others couldn't even avoid him. However, after carefully thinking about the grudges, as well as the Dog Emperor's origins, everyone had to admit that he indeed had the confidence. Only, in the end, he had aged and declined. He might very well die soon. Everyone thought that he was brave and fierce, but they didn't necessarily put his thoughts into action. Unexpectedly, the Yuan clan's immortal king didn't evade again. He stood in place and calmly said, there were indeed people in the Yuan clan who did something wrong. They were disrespectful to the Celestial Emperor, whose radiance illuminated the endless ages. My clan's people will be punished by the Celestial Emperor's descendants. As for me, I wasn't strict enough with my teachings, so I beg for forgiveness. Then, he decisively cut off his own arm. The immortal king's blood was glaring, releasing boundless power, but he quickly restrained it. An arm fell towards the world of the living. He actually straightforwardly offered up an arm. Even the Dog Emperor and the decayed corpse were stunned, feeling a bit surprised. However, the Dog Emperor was soon displeased. He coldly said, "Are you retreating in order to advance? Who are you trying to show that you're being particular? Too hypocritical." He was also straightforward. He reached out a large claw, grabbed the bronze coffin lid, and directly swung it, saying, "I said I'll smash it myself, so I will smash it myself." Bang! He smashed down with the coffin lid, smashing the falling immortal king's arm into pieces. When blood splashed everywhere, it burned again, turning into ashes in one strike. Don't pretend to ask for forgiveness. I'm very clear about your situation, the Dog Emperor said coldly. Then, he looked down below, no longer paying attention to the Yuan race's immortal king. Instead, he stared at the main culprits, the rotting cosmonaut-level Yuan Cheng and the old ultimate Yuan Lun. At this moment, Yu Shang was shaken and speechless. Even an immortal king's arm had been smashed by this black beast? Was he venting his anger and asking for an explanation? Yu Shang's eyes immediately turned red, and tears almost rolled down his face. Yao Yao immediately rushed over, trembling slightly. Ancestor Xian? Good child. You're Yao Yao? Yu Shang was excited, happy, and sad. His body was trembling. He didn't expect that in his bleak later years, he would actually see his only descendant. Celestial Emperor's blood hadn't been extinguished. Even if he died, his heart would be at ease. Chu Feng was sincerely happy for them. He silently stood to the side, holding the stone jar in secret, on guard. He was afraid that a cornered dog would jump over the wall and attack. Good. So it turns out you're also a descendant of Celestial Emperor. The Dog Emperor growled, and the decayed corpse immediately rushed over. The murderous intent on his face disappeared, and he revealed a rare smile that was uglier than crying. I'm deeply gratified that an old friend has descendants. I'm relieved. The decayed corpse sighed. All of you, get over here. The Dog Emperor was furious. He stretched out a large dog paw. Even though his old fur was about to fall off, his large paw was still very sharp. With two popping sounds, he pierced the rotting cosmonaut level and the old ultimate Yuan race's claws and brought them before his eyes. During this process, the world was silent. No one stopped him, and even the immortal kings from the outer realms didn't speak. You even dare to attack Celestial Emperor's descendant and kill him? The Dog Emperor swung his dog paw and flung the incomparably pained Yuan Qing and Yuan Luan away. Blood sprayed through the air. This was the result of the Dog Emperor not attacking them to the death. Otherwise, they would have turned into flying ashes. He didn't want to give them a quick death. Bang! He slapped down with his paw again, and the two experts were immediately broken. 4 parts of their bodies flew through the air, but they weren't dead yet. Your ancestor is invincible. The Dog Emperor suddenly turned around and looked at Yao Yao and Yu Shang. A blazing radiance bloomed in his old eyes. It was as if he had returned to that era, traveling with Celestial Emperor in those extraordinary years as they fought courageously. He only relied on his fists to beat the heavens. The Dog Emperor's eyes were even more radiant and no longer turbid. Then, he slapped Yuan Cheng and Yuan Luan again. Their bodies became even more tattered, and they fell to the ground dripping with blood. How dare you thieves bully Celestial Emperor's descendant? The Dog Emperor roared. Don't disgrace your ancestor's reputation, the Dog Emperor whispered to Yao Yao. I've never met a worthy opponent in the same realm. I've fought against those above me, and I've defeated countless enemies across realms. Yao Yao replied with incomparable confidence. Good. The Dog Emperor's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and they were incomparably resplendent as he nodded repeatedly. At the same time, he slapped Yuan Cheng and Yuan Luan until they cried out miserably. Their bodies were almost turned into meat paste. Then, the Dog Emperor said to Yao Yao with incomparable solemnity, Your ancestor's surname is Yi. As soon as these words were spoken, chaotic wind and thunder tore through the heaven and earth, and the divine sound of the great Tao shook the world. Vaguely, an illusory figure appeared from within the bronze coffin. Amidst the blurriness, one could see his black hair draping over his shoulders, and his gaze was like cold lightning. It was as if he had crossed the long river of history, and he was approaching the present world step by step. Rumble! The aura of the indistinct figure rose sharply, and it shot straight into the outer realms, piercing through the heavens. There were originally ominous and strange things in the two-realm battlefield, but now they were all screaming and exploding immediately. They were completely obliterated by that indescribable Emperor's aura. Crack! The old man, who was traveling in the distance with the supreme decree of the heaven, suddenly discovered to his shock that the decree he carried with him seemed to be letting out a cracking sound. Chapter 1567. The supreme decree that came from the heavens sounded a cracking sound. The meager emissary's body went rigid in place, all of the fine hairs on his body standing on end. He simply couldn't believe what he was feeling. Was this real? This was a decree stamped with the seal of their bloodline's first ancestor. An existence that was unmatched in the heavens above and earth below was unfathomable, its origins unfathomable. No one knew what kind of creature's origins were. How terrifying was his personal letter! It could kill all creatures and trace back to the endless heavens, yet now it actually split apart. At this moment, the emissary understood, even sensing that an unmatched existence had appeared at the limits of this world. It was as if he had walked over from the primordial era, reviving from the passage of time. That person was too powerful, unfathomable, cutting through thistles and thorns in the world's great Tao, forging ahead, passing through several great eras, walking out from that ancient time-space. A heavenly emperor? The emissary was terrified. Then, he couldn't take it any more, shivering, kneeling on the ground. It was because that person's eyes looked over, staring at the decree on his back. The cracked decree successfully drew that person's attention. However, that was all. After the decree shattered, that person turned around, thus leaving into the distance. Great mists pervaded the air. He seemed to be the same throughout time, existing in ancient history. However, in an instant, he became faint again, gradually vaporizing, about to be erased from this world. In the two realms battlefield, everyone felt it even more intensely. They were facing an indescribably powerful supreme existence, making even their soul light tremble. In everyone's surroundings, Tao patterns appeared. These were the natural laws they grasped and comprehended, great Tao fragments resonating, submitting, kowtowing to that person. This was especially true in outer space. Regardless of whether it was the Yuan clan or the Four Tribulation Sparrow, those immortal kings were simply scared to death. How could a true heavenly emperor be startled? The Yuan clan's immortal kings had long knelt down, continuously kowtowing. The Four Tribulation Sparrow and the others were also trembling, prostrating in worship, feeling a boundless fear from the depths of their hearts. They found it hard to believe that there would be a heavenly emperor who crossed the river of time, breaking free from the ancient time-space, actually walking into the present world. Fortunately, they had already given in earlier, not facing the dog emperor to the death. Only they were deeply surprised. That figure actually didn't pay them any attention. At this moment, even though the dog emperor and the decayed corpse were familiar with that person, because of the resonance of the Tao and the difference in their levels of life, they were trembling. Fortunately, even if that person was a void image and not his true body, he still remembered them. He nodded lightly, and then looked towards the emperor corpse the dog emperor was looking after, sighing. He became more and more faint, about to scatter in the cool breeze, about to return to history. Old Yi, are you a human or a ghost? How are you now? Where are you? The decayed corpse shouted, extremely urgent. That figure didn't reply, becoming indistinct. However, it didn't completely disappear, instead appearing everywhere like a great Tao. That day, it appeared in quite a few historical remains. It was an ancient land where he once had a past, an ancient land where he had once set foot in. It was also the ruined lands where he had once left behind unparalleled achievements. Tears welled up in the dog emperor's murky eyes, and it trembled as it roared and gave chase. However, Nine Daoi stopped it, shaking his head. This is the manifestation of the great Tao. It's not the real him, so it's useless to chase after him. After that, everyone saw the Emperor's shadow dissipate, carrying with it a majestic force, turning into a mass of white mist and evaporating from the Yang realm. However, there were a few people whose minds were greatly shaken. They sensed something. The dog Emperor in particular widened its eyes, itching to immediately give chase. It was because it sensed that the coordinates of that person were Little Een. Back then, Celestial Emperor came from that old land, born there. Is this an obsession? Is this his final look back after his path has come to an end? The decayed corpse muttered. Celestial Emperor has returned to his homeland? Tears streamed down the dog Emperor's old face, because it knew that was Celestial Emperor's homeland. That figure arrived in the starry sky of Little Een, gazing at Earth from afar. In the end, it didn't approach. Even though it was born here, it had been too long since it left. Everything had changed. He couldn't have met with an accident, right? The dog Emperor suddenly became afraid. Otherwise, why was he so reluctant to leave and wanted to return to his homeland? Was this to see it one last time? When it thought of these things, it began to tremble, and great fear emerged in its heart. No, how could something have happened to him? Last time, he was still fighting in the Soul River. Don't talk nonsense and scare people. The decayed corpse was very serious. However, it was also very flustered in its heart. There was a great sense of loss, a feeling that it couldn't let go, as if it would never see him again in this life. Had something really happened to Celestial Emperor? Or had he gone to some wretched land and could never return? After all, both the decayed corpse and the dog Emperor knew that Celestial Emperor had once recuperated in the bronze coffin for countless years, but in the end, the coffin was empty and left for them. What had happened during these years? Last time, the dog Emperor and the decayed corpse were still very confident that Celestial Emperor had broken through and would definitely meet again. They even talked through space. But now, why did they feel that there was no return? Why was this? Why? Jiudaui was also talking to himself and asking questions. There were too many things he didn't understand. It was just like why the person he looked up to and revered never returned. Even the traces of him in the history books had almost completely disappeared. At that point, was there no turning back? Was there no other choice? He won't become like that person, will he? There is no trace of him in the entire ancient history. Perhaps there has never been such a person? The dog Emperor was trembling, and its old body was trembling constantly. This was what it had said when it was arguing with Jiudaui. Now, was it also going to fall on the Celestial Emperor it followed? Such a change, was there an accident or was there no way back forever? If, in the end, you will disappear from our hearts, will that be considered as passing away? Or in other words, a true eternal silence? Will he really die? The dog Emperor's imagination ran wild. It was really afraid. Nothing will happen. He will come back eventually. The decayed corpse comforted. In fact, whether it was him, the dog Emperor, or Jiudaui, they were all full of confusion and incomparable fear towards that kind of domain. What kind of path was it? Why did it never appear again, as if it could never return in this life? Something happened. Jiudaui felt his hair stand on end. In the lesser Een realm, in the starry sky, the Celestial Emperor's blurry figure suddenly surged with unparalleled vast energy. Even his eyes became frightening, burning like the sun. It was too bright. He stared at his hometown, at Earth. Ever since he turned around and left, he had almost never set foot on it again. Now, he found a problem. Someone was playing out this place. The entire Earth was reincarnating, changing, and time had fallen into a strange circle. Bang! He made his move, the first time such a powerful attack. In the blink of an eye, he broke through an invisible layer of the sky. Outside the Earth, a layer of supreme ripples of the great path suddenly bloomed, and then the light screen shattered without a sound. This did not harm any living beings on the old land. In fact, no one even noticed it. However, the power of this finger was reversing time, piercing through the years, penetrating the strange circle of imprisonment, overturning reincarnation, and attacking an unknown land. Boom! In the distance there was a mysterious explosion of power. Someone let out a muffled groan, causing the great path of heaven and earth to tremble violently. Someone had been hit. This person was not in the present world, either. It was as if he was sitting outside the 33 heavens, far away from the world. His entire body was washed away by time, baptized by the passage of time, and became the source of a certain path of evolution. Now, he had suffered a blow from the Celestial Emperor. Moreover, the Celestial Emperor did not stop. He moved again, directly brandishing the Emperor's fist that had defeated all under the heavens in the past, blasting towards the blurry figure. Time was in disorder, and the entire ancient history was rumbling. The heavens were on the verge of collapse, no longer existing. This kind of scene was too shocking. The Celestial Emperor attacked, blasting towards the end of a certain path of evolution, or in other words, the place of origin of a certain terrifying creature. What is that? Regardless of whether it was Jiao Daoi or the Dog Emperor, they were all shocked when they sensed something. As for Chu Feng, he was even more shaken. He had a kind of puzzlement. Just who was it that was playing out the Earth's past, continuously reproducing a certain period of history and causing it to reincarnate? An invisible hand had always made Chu Feng fearful, and he didn't dare return to the Little Yin realm. Now, a turning point had appeared. Was the Celestial Emperor coming to break through that layer of fog? Chapter 1568. Piercing through the mist and facing the scouring of the river of time, Celestial Emperor's imposing figure descended upon an unfathomable space beyond the world. A fist was thrown over. Celestial Emperor traversed the past and present, tearing apart the myriad worlds and arriving at an inconceivable place to find that mysterious creature. It was as if he had traversed the entire ancient history and arrived at the other shore of the future. He had truly transcended beyond the world and confronted a creature that couldn't be imagined with common sense. Boom! The power of Celestial Emperor's fist reigned supreme in the heavens and earth, striking until the light of time splashed everywhere. The rivers of time from past to present were thrown into disorder, and the world was restless. It was as if the heavens were about to be shaken down. This was that person's fist imprint. It illuminated the past, present, and future. It was too tyrannical and matchless. It was the true unrivaled fist imprint. At this moment, everyone in the myriad worlds was trembling. Countless old monsters who had lived for who knew how many eras were shivering and couldn't help but want to kneel down. As a result, even true immortals were trembling. Their complexions were incomparably pale, and many people's legs were weak. It's him, that Celestial Emperor after the immortal path ended. He has broken through the ages, as if he has revived from the primordial era and walked out from the ancient history. Some people were so excited that they couldn't even speak coherently. Even the lips of many old monsters' ancient ancestors were trembling in fear. They could actually see Celestial Emperor today. This surpassed the imagination of the people of the world and left everyone indescribably shaken. Their soul light and flesh were both convulsing, and even the ultimate experts were trembling in reverence. Boom! Celestial Emperor's fist imprint was matchless and pierced through everything in its path. That sound was deafening. It was the trembling of the Tao and the murmuring of the world's order. It was the submission and audience of the heavens towards that emperor, and the myriad worlds worshipping one person. Rumble! That person's figure appeared in the myriad worlds at the same time, intimidating all living beings from past to present. As expected, Celestial Emperor's fist was unrivaled. Even when facing an inconceivable existence, he was still so tyrannical and peerless, blasting that figure until it became indistinct and hazy, as if it was going to be obliterated from the world. Everyone was shocked and horrified. That was definitely an existence that could compete with Celestial Emperor, but now it was being suppressed by that imposing figure and was about to be killed by the Emperor's fist. Roar. A low and oppressive roar resounded through the air, shaking everyone to the core. That creature was originally about to become indistinct, as if it was about to be completely obliterated, but it revived with a single thought. Was this the terrifying existence that had reached the end of the road? Even if he was killed, he could withstand the pressure and return in the process of destroying the great Tao. His true self was eternal and inextinguishable. One had to bear in mind that just now, his great Tao path was already broken, his body already becoming nothingness, yet he instantly returned. It was just too terrifying. At this moment, the eyes of countless people were dripping with blood, tears of blood flowing down. Even though they were separated by 10,000 worlds, this type of battle that seemed to be separated by the endless river of time, there was still such terrifying might that spread out strand by strand, making people feel fear. Everyone knew that this was the result of being isolated. The true battle was too far away in the outside world. Otherwise, everyone who saw this battle would die. Everyone's minds were shaken. This was the irregular scene that appeared after the Heavenly Emperor revealed itself, and that was why it was seen by everyone. If he intentionally concealed it, no one would be able to see all of this. What kind of zone was that? It was obviously not the earth of the little netherworld, but a place that had transcended the heavens. It was the place where the creatures at the end of the road resided. In fact, that was his birthplace. Roar. Another low roar sounded. Everyone finally vaguely saw that creature's appearance. Its entire body was covered in thick long fur, completely covering its body. They could feel that it was extremely large, incomparably tyrannical. The most powerful creature's path had already reached its end, the great Tao in a haze. It was actually this type of appearance? Even though it was hazy and far away, quite a few true immortal-level creatures still sucked in cold breaths of air. They didn't see this person so auspicious, yet the creature at the end of the road was actually this ferocious? This was completely different from what they had imagined. In everyone's understanding, creatures at the end of the road were eternal and imperishable, transcending time. Even if it wasn't an immortal, there was no need for its hair to be disheveled and its body covered in thick beast fur, right? What was going on with him? It was extremely abnormal. In the end, the Heavenly Emperor wrapped himself in chaotic energy, making the Tao laws and order of the heavens resonate, lowering their heads in submission. He smashed over with unmatched might. That figure released a muffled groan, and then it exploded. Hot tears were about to flow out of the Dog Emperor's turbid old eyes. It was very excited, and even its dried-up old blood seemed to be boiling. It felt as if it had returned to the primordial era, once again meeting the Heavenly Emperor of the past. In that great era, it swept through all the great enemies in the heavens and earth together with him. The Heavenly Emperor's style was still the same. Even though this was only a will of his, it was still so unmatched, tyrannical, and matchless. The chests of the Dog Emperor and the decayed corpse rose and fell, both of them gasping for breath. Ah, that exploded figure roared, reconstructing itself in the Tao, reappearing its true body. He was imperishable after all. However, the Heavenly Emperor attacked furiously, blasting over, vowing to completely obliterate him. It was because this touched upon the Heavenly Emperor's bottom line. There was actually someone who dared to act in his homeland, tampering with his birthplace, making that old land fall into a strange cycle of time, endlessly repeating reincarnation. It was clear that this indistinct figure was plotting something big. Just as Nine Daoi, Chu Feng, and the others had speculated, this indescribable existence was abnormally interested in the lesser Yin realm where two heavenly emperors had been born. It wanted to recreate that kind of environment and try to raise venomous insects to see if it could awaken the heavenly emperor's seed once again. Chu Feng had never dared to go back because he had always been apprehensive and worried. He was afraid that the manipulator behind the Earth's reincarnation was plotting something. Now, a strand of the heavenly emperor's will had awakened. It broke through the mysterious sky outside of the Earth and followed that aura to break through the barrier of heaven and earth. It passed through the barriers of the myriad worlds and found that person to settle the score with the manipulator. Chu Feng was naturally excited and happy. If he could get rid of this great trouble, he would have one less worry and could erase the shadow shrouding his heart. It was clear that the great Tao of creatures at the end of the road had been severed, and there was no more path forward. However, its body was eternal and indestructible. It stood on the cliff of the Tao, transcending and inextinguishable. Therefore, this kind of creature was extremely difficult to kill. Everyone saw time splatter in all directions as the two experts collided. It was as if millions and millions of years had already passed in that region that transcended the world. Time wasn't normal at all as it continuously washed over them. It gave people the feeling that there was a gap in history. Existences at this level had all Tao emptiness, and they themselves had triumphed over the Tao. Order was nothing more than a roadside flower that would wither after blooming. They were baptized by the river of time, and in the end, everything would become void. Only one's body was eternal and true. The river of time surged and surged beyond eternity. It made the myriad worlds tremble as if they were going to collapse at any time. That day, the heavenly emperor's fist rumbled and blasted that creature apart. The imposing figure was courageous and unrivaled as it swept through everything in its path. Bang! That creature exploded once again and didn't reappear for a long time. It truly killed an expert who had reached the end of the road? Impossible. No one dared to believe it. If creatures at that level were so easy to kill, they wouldn't have been revered as eternal and indestructible existences. Sure enough, there was something strange there. With a thought, that creature reappeared. It was indistinct and terrifying, and its entire body was covered in thick fur like a terrifying humanoid beast. However, it didn't attack again. Instead, its body became more and more indistinct and burning, about to erase itself. He isn't his true body, just a piece of skin with thick fur left behind from endless years ago? Finally, everyone saw what that was. It was a piece of humanoid skin, difficult for the heavens to destroy just like that, difficult for the earth to bury, eternally existing beyond the world. This was just too terrifying. It was just a piece of skin, yet it could develop sentience, derive the earth's reincarnation. It wanted to raise Gu, observe Heavenly Emperor's homeland, its methods heaven-reaching. Where was this creature's true body? It was because he reached the end of the road, leaping into the air, thus disappearing. Or was it to say that he had previously been injured, killed by someone, only leaving behind a piece of skin? Hong. The Heavenly Emperor's fist imprint shook. That skin still transformed into the Tao in the end, completely disappearing, forever silent. Heavenly Emperor stood there. Wisps of light flew out from his eyes, reversing karma, searching for that creature's true body. However, if this was a creature that reached the end of the road, if it purposely avoided the world, or if it truly died, only leaving behind a piece of skin, then it really was difficult to trace back. Especially since Heavenly Emperor wasn't his true body. He didn't even leave behind a piece of human skin. It was only a remnant will, even more so incomplete. Not long after, he returned from beyond the world, looking at the earth, looking at the homeland that gave birth to him, not saying anything for a long time. In the end, he turned around, resolutely leaving. Then, he returned to heaven and earth, becoming a pair of fist imprints, sprinkling specks of starlight in the heavens. He was only a trace left behind by Heavenly Emperor's fist imprint, a wisp of will left behind, and now it had dispersed. The Dog Emperor's eyes were brimming with tears, muttering, "You are definitely still alive, not transformed into the Tao, not coming back to take a last look. I believe that in the future we will definitely meet again." Suddenly, a cold sigh was heard, very unkind, and also very merciless. Has the road reached its end, or has it died in silence? That merciless voice reverberated in the heavens. It wasn't loud, but it intimidated everyone. Amidst the haziness, people saw a figure, and behind him, there was a vast and ancient, the sacrificial ground. The main sacrifice? How could he appear? How could he come again? Wasn't there an agreement? He had an agreement with the supreme creature behind the three emperor weapons to give the heavens a chance of survival? Now, he actually appeared again. A pair of fist imprints, burning the aura of the road to its end. Interesting, have you truly died, or have you leapt into the sky from the river of time? The main sacrifice muttered to himself in the endless distance, and then a cold light shot out from his eyes, saying, "Not thinking and not thinking, not only can you prevent the return of the life form at the end of the road, but also, when everything related to you is erased, no one will think about you anymore, and you will truly die." The fact that he could say such a thing was shocking to everyone. If something happened to the true body of the person at the end of the road, would he truly die until everyone no longer thought about him and no longer mentioned him? "I will erase your aura, and you dare to leave your fist imprints in this world? Destroy." The main sacrifice spoke in an extremely strict manner, and then he attacked. He wanted to erase everything related to Heavenly Emperor, first the traces he left behind, and then cut off his shadow from everyone's hearts, truly reaching the point where there was no thought, and no one would think about Heavenly Emperor anymore. He acted swiftly and decisively. Although he didn't descend upon the world of the living, he was still separated by endless space-time, suspected to be above the heavens. However, when he pointed out with his finger, the long river of time was about to change its path, reverse karma, and grind down Heavenly Emperor who might be alive, or perhaps already dead. However, there was an accident within an accident, and a shocking change occurred once again. An indescribable Tao rhythm emerged, and on the way to the eternal and unspeakable land, a bridge emerged. It was rumored that many emperors had walked this path, but in the end they all fell under the bridge and died. At this time, in the great fog, on the other side of the endless deathly silent bridge, a rain of light suddenly blossomed. As white clothes fluttered, a sparkling palm revived in death, and then slapped towards the sacrificial ground. Across space-time, separated by several pieces of ancient history, that peerless palm pierced through eternity, and directly covered the main sacrifice. Ayo! The dog emperor howled, and his old eyes widened. He knew who that was, the Empress. She actually appeared. This is her true body, she has revived. The Third Sect Master. Chapter 1569. A snow-white sparkling palm rushed out from the long river of time, striking over from the quiet land of death that transcended beyond the heavens. It looked beautiful and delicate, but its power was immeasurable, Tao aura matchless and unmatched. When it descended, even the main sacrifice's expression changed. The Empress' palm descended, directly covering the main sacrifice, his figure disappearing. With a hong sound, it was as if all types of great Tao resonated throughout the endless ages, all of them hacking down on the main sacrifice's body. Originally, the main sacrifice was incomparably terrifying, looking down on all worlds, moving about outside the world, overlooking the 33 heavens, aloof and terrifying. When his gaze passed through 10,000 realms, it was as if heaven and earth were being opened, realm walls even split apart by his gaze, chaotic energy surging. However now, he flew out diagonally with a ping sound, struck by a palm. He released a muffled groan, his body becoming more and more indistinct, returning to the sacrificial earth. This exceeded his expectations. There was actually someone who dared suddenly take action against him. Moreover, a solid slap landing on his flesh. This couldn't be said to be anything but shocking. Not even he could evade it, being fiercely struck like a target. If it was anyone else, forget about being injured and coughing out blood, they might have long exploded, scattering into nothingness, to the extent where even the sacrificial earth world would explode. After all, this was a strike from the Empress. However, he was still a creature that truly originated from the strangeness, an unmatched existence that was waiting to ascend. Otherwise, how could he have become the main sacrifice of this great era? He was the creature that presided over the great sacrifice of this world. Amidst the dazzling brilliance, amidst the immeasurable rain of ascension light, the crystalline palm crossed countless worlds and smashed into the world beyond. The Empress was unmatched, as if she wanted to directly slap the main sacrifice to death. This really was too crazy. Ever since she revived and chose to take action, she didn't say a single word, directly attacking the unimaginable existence in the sacrificial earth. The sparkling and translucent palm possessed matchless power. 10,000 Tao resonated, turning into tangible symbols that submitted themselves to the distance. As that palm imprint slapped over, endless time and space were stirred. A great explosion erupted in the world beyond. Fortunately, this wasn't the heavens, or else there wouldn't be anything left. Everything would be blasted apart, completely vanishing. The main sacrifice coughed out blood. One could see that he had been covered several times by the palm imprint. He was like a vicious beast trampled by a heavenly immortal. Even though he was vicious, he lost the initiative, beaten into an incredibly sorry state. His hair scattered about, Lu Ji level true blood splashing everywhere. Everyone was shocked, simply not daring to imagine that there was actually this type of woman who didn't say anything after coming up, directly wanting to beat the officiant to death? This truly made one tremble with shock and excitement. It could be said to be beautiful and violent. It carried the might of a myriad of strands of lightning, and it was decisive and fierce. Once it attacked, it was domineering and intimidating. Even though she was a woman, she was even more shocking than those experts in history. Her style was unmatched, and her offensive power was explosive. It was also at this moment that many people fiercely shook their heads, as if they had awakened from some sort of nightmare. It was because not long ago they suffered from the corrosion, yet they didn't even know about it. Only now did they recover, discovering that their entire bodies were covered in white hairs. They were scared witless. Just now, everyone had suffered from the strange radiation. Everyone was affected, a certain will within their hearts disappearing. The instant the officiant approached the present world, he produced some type of effect on the entire world and all creatures. The officiant was extremely vicious, wishing to cut off Celestial Emperor's path of retreat, choosing to erase all traces of him from this world, making all creatures in the heavens not want to think about him. The officiant wanted to erase Celestial Emperor's figure from this world. This was undoubtedly frightening. If Celestial Emperor himself was fine, then that was that. Even if the officiant cut down the heavens, buried the earth, slaughtered all life's will, it would still be completely useless. However, if Celestial Emperor was injured, on the verge of death, his own great Tao about to be extinguished, in an extremely dangerous situation, then the officiant's methods would seem incomparably sinister. Creatures at the Lu Ji level were extremely difficult to kill. Even if they experienced endless tribulations, even if their souls scattered, it was still extremely difficult for them to completely disappear. As long as there were still people who still thought about him, then there was a chance for him to return. It was to the extent that after all these ages, even if he had fallen for many eras, if someone from later generations unearthed the inscriptions that recorded him and lightly recited his name, he might appear once again. That was why the officiator struck mercilessly, intending to cause the Celestial Emperor, who was already at death's door and could possibly meet with an accident, to cause him to truly perish in the long and silent time without thoughts and thoughts. However, the appearance of what seemed to be the great Empress broke this process. While everyone was in a daze, their minds obliterating certain thoughts, the snow-white sleeves fluttered. The great Empress transcended beyond the world, vaguely appearing, awakening from that nothingness. Boom! That sparkling palm was too terrifying, piercing through all obstructions. This was a great confrontation beyond the world, with the blood of Lu Ji level creatures flying. It was extremely terrifying. There was actually someone who dared to act so domineeringly against the officiant, killing him. It was truly shocking. Most importantly, this person originated from the heavens. That was the legendary Great Empress. This scene caused everyone's hearts to surge. How many years had it been? Especially in the present world, all clans were threatened by inauspicious creatures, heading towards doomsday. They were sullen and fearful, yet there was nothing they could do. Now there was someone who was so domineering, attacking as she pleased, wanting to kill as she pleased. Even though it was a woman, she attacked with boundless domineeringness. This made everyone's hearts surge, their blood boiling. Even though they knew that they couldn't compare to that level of creature, they were still incomparably excited, wanting to roar out. Well fought, F***ck that grandson up. The dog emperor howled. The decayed corpse's emotions rose and fell, feeling that this was inconceivable. That woman actually returned today? Was it really her who was unharmed? One had to bear in mind that too many unforeseen events had happened in the battle back then. Even someone as powerful as this woman of unmatched talent, even though she had great achievements, still encountered an accident. In the end, if it wasn't because she had no other choice, forced by the situation, why would she set out alone, treading on that ancient bridge that was basically a path of 10 deaths without life? To think that today, she had recovered so strongly and came out alive from that vast and boundless land of death. From past until now, it was unknown just how many unmatched experts, individuals who were at the very top of every great era, stepped on that bridge of death, but in the end they all failed. Even the burial pit that stood side by side with the underworld kingdom and Soul River was only a slightly larger pit before that bridge of death. There was an even more terrifying region behind it. Many people thought that the Empress died on that ancient bridge, falling into some deep pit or abyss. Today, she gave everyone a pleasant surprise, powerfully reappearing alive. Roar! The officiant was furious. Someone as powerful as him, unmatched in the heavens above and earth below, was actually slapped by someone today, sent staggering backwards, true blood splashing in all directions. After losing the initiative, he was forced into a passive state, every step he took wrong, his true body already blasted through several times. If not for him being at the end of the path level, everlasting and imperishable, he really would have been in danger. If he was a bit weaker, he might have been killed. Pung! He was struck flying again, his body unexpectedly covered by a sparkling palm, producing cracks with a hong sound. His hair was disheveled, entire body covered in blood. Enough! He released a low roar, his entire body shining, even the sacrificial ground behind him becoming a bit clearer. It was as if he was closing in on the heavens, about to approach the present world. A powerful aura surged, the heavens of the 10,000 realms unexpectedly starting to crack apart, as if the world was going to be destroyed, about to explode from a vicious colossus that shocked past and present. It was going to collapse. This was just too horrifying. As the officiant approached, strand after strand of aura was enough to destroy the world. Even time became unstable, no longer continuous. All of history seemed like it was going to become empty, returning to nothingness. The only fortunate thing was that he really was too far from the 10,000 realms. If his true body wanted to immediately arrive, it wouldn't be easy, extremely difficult. Hong. What he received in response was a fierce strike from the Empress, turning into a rain of light, transforming into the great Tao, transforming the past and present, displaying the ultimate supreme power. Her finger was like a sword, stabbing forward. Pooh! This strike didn't attack the officiant, but rather like a bubble that was pierced, striking the sacrificial ground, making that special region explode, about to be destroyed. This was a disaster. Even someone as powerful as the officiant's expression changed, his mind greatly shaken. He suddenly turned around, quickly protecting this ancient sacrificial ground, fearing that something unexpected would happen. Despite this being the case, his face still became a bit pale. It was because he felt an awe-inspiring aura that hadn't changed since time immemorial. It was as if someone was muttering quietly, but also like a weak beast roar, making even him produce a layer of goosebumps. In the depths of the distant region behind him, there were memorial tablets that were swaying, shaking, about to fall. Hong. He risked his own injuries, using his own unmatched great Tao to cover this place, protecting those memorial tablets and others, taking the Empress attack head-on. With a ping sound, both him and the sacrificial ground quickly backed up, disappearing into the distance. He opened his mouth, coughing out blood, moreover continuously coughing out true blood. Who would have thought that the one who walked that path of ruin, stepped on the death bridge, could actually still be alive, allowing you to reach the end of the road domain, becoming powerful to such a degree? The officiant roared, his eyes revealing a vicious glint. His gaze could split the heavens of myriad realms, staring straight at the other side of the mysterious death bridge. However, no one could see through that place. The death bridge was right in front of the burial pit, which was already intimidating enough, and it was only a large pit under the bridge. The other side of the bridge couldn't be estimated at all. I think even if you become an immortal emperor at the end of the road level, you might never return. At the very least, you won't be able to return alive. That bridge has no path of retreat. The officiant sneered again and again. Great mist pervaded the air, and a bridge vaguely appeared. There was no end to the other side, as if it had entered the boundless heavens. That was a land of death, a land of despair. There were no living creatures, and even if there really were creatures that made it there alive, it would be difficult for them to return. Vaguely, a white-clothed figure could be seen, on the other side of the other side, in death seclusion at the end of the death bridge. In the attack just now, she only used one hand. There seems to be a situation there. You will never be able to return, let alone kill your way before my eyes. The officiant said coldly. Without a doubt, he was flipping the table. Previously, he had an agreement with the masters behind the three emperor weapons to give the heavens a chance of survival, but now, he didn't seem to be thinking about it anymore. His true body moved again, about to approach the present world. Hong. However, when the officiant responded domineeringly, speaking coldly, the white-clothed empress moved again. What did everyone see? An endless rain of light scattered down. She was ascending, standing in the air, crossing the death bridge, and throwing herself in the officiant's direction. Impossible! In the boundless outer world, the end of the road-level creatures cried out in alarm. The officiant was in disbelief. The white-clothed woman carried endless power, an endless rain of light around her. She seemed to have taken a leap from the end of the road, sublimated, about to throw herself into the present world. Looking at her unmatched style, she was actually going to kill the officiant. The Third Sect Master. Chapter 1570. The white-clothed Empress's beauty was exceptional. She passed through the mist and took a step out, actually crossing the heavens and tens of thousands of realms. She was like a heavenly fairy as she moved murderously towards the great enemy. She wanted to kill the main sacrifice. How many people from ancient times dared to do this, to reach this step? Even though she was a woman, she was powerful to the extreme. Even when facing the source of the mysteries, she would still attack, looking down on the world. Ancient history was like an abyss. Great eras passed one after another. Apart from the 9 Daos who ruled over the endless ages, sweeping through all enemies, as well as the glorious golden age of the three heavens, this world was always shrouded in darkness, becoming like an ice-cold underworld. The inauspicious source was like an enormous and boundless dark cloud, covering the heavens above, passing through ancient history, making the ancestors of all clans tremble. The rise and fall of the past and present were all decided by a single thought from them. How many people could resist and break through the darkness? The sacrificial ground's level creatures were simply impossible to defeat. The entire ancient history was covered under their shadows. Now, a woman directly took action, starting a slaughter without saying a word. She decisively took action against the source of the mysteries, those level creatures. In that instant, everyone's blood surged, stirred up and stirred up. Many people couldn't help but roar out. The inauspicious shadow covered the skies of history, covering the heads of all clans for who knew how many great eras. Now, there was an empress who wanted to tear apart a corner. "How dare you?" the main sacrifice roared. Even he was extremely shocked. Those who stepped on the bridge of death couldn't return at all, so how did that woman do it? Even if she reversed time, it wouldn't work. There was no turning back. However, the reality was like this. That figure stepped on the great wastelands of history, powerful beyond compare, braving the winds and waves, slaughtering her way over. Her clothes fluttered about. The Empress stepped over 10,000 realms, following the river of time, arriving outside the sacrificial ground. A powerful aura erupted, making this indistinct ancient land tremble endlessly. Hong. The main sacrifice quickly retaliated. This was the sacrificial ground, so there definitely couldn't be any mistakes. He feared that the Empress would truly slaughter her way in and cause irreversible consequences. In that instant, millions and millions of symbols shone, turning into a sea. Then, they ignited, blossoming outside the sacrificial ground. It was as if a great cosmos was being sacrificed, burning, submerging the battlefield between the two. This was an unimaginable great battle. In that instant, Tao sounds rang through the heavens. The main sacrifice was chanting sutras, sitting in front of the sacrificial ground. Even if he was harmed, even if he had to pay a terrifying price, he still had to ensure that the sacrificial ground wasn't damaged. At the same time, he felt that he had been too careless earlier, bringing the sacrificial ground close to the modern realm, but now he had his hands and feet tied. However, he found it hard to believe that this old land that had been shrouded in their shadows had once again given birth to a Lu Jin-level creature. Moreover, it was a beautiful woman who had crossed the bridge of death and returned. The main sacrifice chanted scriptures. Endless symbols erupted, boundless and immeasurable, exceeding the stars in the heavens. They were endless, and even the great cosmos was as weak as a firefly compared to them, unable to be mentioned in the same breath. Rumble. All types of natural laws, divine abilities, wonderful techniques, and others were instantly displayed by him alone. Every single symbol was a type of Tao, their destructive power astonishing, shaking the past, present, and future. Life forms at the end of the road had lived for too long, to the point where even he himself didn't know how long it had lived. It was just too shockingly ancient. After so many great eras passed, he also didn't know how many heroes rose up, how many giants met a sad end, how many divine lords and great demons who dominated a great era fell. That was why Lu Jin-level experts accumulated countless mysterious methods, grasped a sea of immortal arts and secret methods, setting foot on all types of great Tao paths. Right now, what the main sacrifice displayed was precisely the types of methods he had witnessed in the endless past, all types of great Tao. Everything erupted at this moment. In that instant, time flowed backwards, and then the direction was reversed. This was one of the types of Tao. The main sacrifice separated a body, directly tracing back the river of time, wishing to kill the young empress. Unfortunately, he failed. The white-clothed woman's white hand moved lightly, as if a cold emperor's sword streaked across the sky of history, severing the great river, making the space between the main sacrifice's brows split open, blood continuously flowing out. Moreover, that line of time was broken. Of course, tracing back the light of time was only one of the main sacrifice's endless attack scriptures. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, a gap that exceeded the limits of time, he still had tens of thousands of attacks. For example, his true body sitting in the sacrificial ground was plucking at a string, the string of fate. The level involved was extremely high, extremely terrifying. Even 9 Daoi, Dog Emperor, and the others, separated by time and space, felt their souls tremble, feeling as if their lives were about to be controlled. Even those as powerful as immortal kings felt their minds go blank, as if they had already died for eternity. This was still the result of not being on the battlefield, far away from the battlefield. If they were just a bit closer, even if they took a look, they probably wouldn't have a good ending. The Empress's eyes were resplendent. With a single glance, it was as if the blue sea had already turned into mulberry fields, seeing all things in the world, reading the ups and downs of fate. This attack made the main sacrifice himself scared. That string of fate couldn't be plucked any further. He was extremely terrified, feeling as if he was going to suffer a backlash, possibly being turned upside down to control fate. Bung! The string of fate was broken. Blood flowed from his finger, and he himself released a muffled groan. And this was also a type of great Tao within the tens of thousands of attacks. Dripping sounds rang out. When the main sacrifice's finger was bleeding, there was actually a trembling sound. Following which, countless runes bloomed, and one of the attacks silently eroded the Empress. That was the power of karma. The main sacrifice's blood dripped down, not flowing in vain. It seeped into the space of karma, targeting the white-clothed woman. One could imagine just how heaven-defying the main sacrifice's attack power was. Any random technique or Tao was a world-shaking extreme art. If the experts of the mortal world grasped a single one, it would be enough for them to move about without fear, overlook a large half of the great era. Yet now, the main sacrifice had it at his fingertips, casually displaying it. There were just too many of them. When they were all combined, it was simply unimaginable. The main reason was that the main sacrifice had witnessed the heaven-warping creatures of countless eras. Even those demonic ancestors and Tao ancestors were nothing more than passers-by in the eyes of experts at the end of the road, just a piece of memory, all of it gone like smoke and mist. Compared to unmatched experts at the end of the road, it was difficult for peerless demonic ancestors, Tao ancestors, and others to overturn the heavens. Once they were targeted, their paths would only seem a bit more stunning, worthy of reference and reference. In the main sacrifice's long and endless lifespan, these were nothing more than small interludes. Those laws and Tao were recorded. As for those people, they would soon be forgotten. Chong! The Empress' hair streaked across the void, every strand sparkling, severing endless karma. All types of great Tao chains, even more so, instantly broke, exploding there. It was as if the sea of stars was being destroyed, as if the past and present were collapsing. During this process, the Empress still didn't say a single word, even more so not displaying complex and dazzling divine abilities like the main sacrifice. She only had a single palm, slapping forward. The main sacrifice's expression changed. At this level, the simpler the attack, the more he felt restraining fear. It was because this was the same as abandoning everything else, single-mindedly focusing on the true self. Even if endless eras passed, only the true body would remain as one, everlasting and imperishable. The Empress' focus, this type of extremely simple attack, contained immeasurable Tao. Endless power had long taken root in her flesh, internal organs, tendons, and bones. For her, what great Tao! What unmatched divine abilities! All of it would be destroyed with a single palm. Hong! Hong! The Empress slaughtered her way over, wishing to enter the sacrificial ground. Her palm imprint collapsed everything, breaking through everything in its way, making the sacrificial ground crack apart, producing terrifying black cracks. Moreover, blood flowed between the realm walls. This scene was extremely terrifying. Could it be that the sacrificial ground space had life? Roar, a low roar that made one's scalp go numb sounded. The memorial tablet in the depths of the sacrificial ground swayed, making the main sacrifice's expression change miserably. He released a fierce roar, supporting the sacrificial ground without any regard for the price, facing the Empress. It was clear that this sacrificial ground had a special meaning. The main sacrifice would rather suffer injuries himself than allow any unforeseen events to happen here. Pung! He supported the sacrificial ground, but he himself was beaten until his hair was disheveled, even his face caved in, the damage to his flesh serious. For this type of creature, it was difficult for the true body to die. Even if it died, if someone thought of him, remembered him in the future river of time, there was a chance of him reviving. This was extremely terrifying. However, for the main sacrifice, this type of injury wasn't a physical injury, but rather a mental humiliation. This type of queen-like arrival, powerfully slaughtering her way to his family's entrance, beating him up in the sacrificial ground he was protecting, killing him, this made his face extremely bad, leaving him with a powerful feeling of humiliation. A furious roar sounded. He did everything he could, activating the unmatched magical body to attack the Empress. Do you think focusing on your true self, that you are the only one, encompassing the might of the heavens within yourself is the correct path? You, a latecomer, are still too inexperienced, far from it. The main sacrifice roared. He displayed a strange technique again, drowning out this place in great mist. He was going to overturn the battle situation, kill the Empress. However, he felt a wave of palpitation, his body instantly going taut, feeling like something bad was going to happen. Sure enough, almost in an instant, his pupils constricted, and the great fog around him was dispersed by someone else. In the Empress's surroundings, endless flowers bloomed, all of them sparkling and translucent, every petal reflecting a different great world. Every petal had the Empress figure, even more so the most complex Tao patterns. Rumble! In that instant it was as if an endless universe appeared, endless space-time appearing. All types of beams of light attacked from different eras, shining from those petals. The Empress seemed to have appeared on every petal, brandishing her white hands, simply about to explode the heavens with her own strength. Pung! 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 Almost in an instant, the main sacrifice's unrivaled secret technique of countless transformations was defeated, even his body was pierced through, blood splashing everywhere. His face, in particular, seemed to have been beaten until it disappeared. The most terrifying thing was that the sacrificial ground was unstable, the sacrificial tablets and others swaying, releasing faint whimpering sounds, low weeping, intermittent, as if it was right by his ears, right in front of his body. The color on the main sacrifice's face that had just been mended immediately disappeared. Don't! He released a great roar of fear, as if some type of tragic disaster was about to happen. Chapter 1571. There seemed to be some kind of demon in the sacrificial ground. It was extremely terrifying, and when the memorial tablets swayed, it emitted terrifying whimpering sounds. It was like an old ghost from the most ancient era, an indescribable existence was reviving, whispering and crying, wanting to return to the present world. The face of the main sacrifice was devoid of color. Even he was horrified. His waist tightened, and he was about to break free from the river of time at any time and leave the sacrificial ground. However, he couldn't. He was the main sacrifice of this era. If he really left his post without permission, he would bear a great crime. At the first moment, he cut open his jet-black wrist, and multicolored blood dripped down. The colors didn't overlap with each other and actually circulated independently. Among them, the most important was gray blood. It was like the blood of death from hell, devouring all the vitality in the outside world. However, now, regardless of whether it was the multicolored blood or the gray dead blood, they were all being consumed, vanishing at the memorial tablets in the depths of the sacrificial ground. The whimpering sounds near the memorial tablets became a little softer, but the situation was still serious. Vaguely, a few coffins appeared, and a ghost-like figure wandered back and forth like it was lost and looking for its way back. No one in the heavens could see this scene at all. Otherwise, just that kind of aura, and that kind of aura was enough to make countless people collapse and be destroyed in an instant. To the evolvers of the Yang realm, no matter how strong they were, they couldn't look directly at a creature of the Lu Jin level. They couldn't truly stare at it. Moreover, that memorial tablet was even more strange and astonishing. It couldn't be touched. Only Chu Feng sensed it slightly because the stone jar on his body was trembling slightly. Back then, during the process of his evolution, not only did he see the collapsed supreme creature, the woman of the Lu Jin level, at the end of the road of pollen, but he also saw a few coffins behind her. This might be related to the cause of her death, and it was even more likely to hide the great secret of many eras. Now, Chu Feng had a slightly familiar feeling again. There were traces of that kind of coffin aura in the sacrificial ground. Rumble. Outside the world, in front of the sacrificial ground, the Empress descended. Countless sparkling petals fluttered in the sky, and every petal reflected the great thousand worlds, even more so reflecting the Empress figure. She brandished her palm imprint with all of her strength, simply about to blast apart the past and present, turning everything into primal chaos, about to cease to exist. The misty divine radiance, the rolling sea of lightning, and the power to split the heavens and the earth exploded around the female Empress, tearing the heavens and severing the river of time. All of her attack power was focused on the officiator. Bang, bang, bang. The officiant let out a muffled groan. Parts of his body were being damaged, and bloody holes were blasted open one after another. Even his soul light was in the same state. It was battered by the Empress's peerless seal, and was about to collapse. Most importantly, the sacrificial ground was also cracking. The Empress lifted her foot and stepped into it. Those of the present world cannot enter. Are you trying to self-destruct? The main sacrifice's body was pierced through. True blood splashed everywhere, but he was still speaking softly. His eyes revealed a sinister radiance. He was worried that the sacrificial ground would be damaged, and that it would be torn apart by the Empress's powerful attack. However, he was also secretly looking forward to it, hoping that the unknown force in the sacrificial ground would obliterate the Empress. Rumble. The scene of the female Empress entering the sacrificial ground was horrifying. It was as if she was splitting the heavens and earth apart, causing a great explosion to occur here. The primal chaos collapsed, and the boundless great thousand universes were being born and destroyed. During this process, the officiator flew out diagonally. It was as if he was about to be thrown from the present world into the past, and was about to be obliterated. The Empress's palm print pierced through the river of time and smashed the threads of karma and fate. She locked onto him and bombarded his true body in succession. The main sacrifice's so-called endless 10,000 methods, endless great Tao, and other things were all destroyed, deformed beyond recognition. It's difficult to kill me at the end of the road. Even though I carry the sacrificial ground on my back, and it's difficult for me to fight you head-on, you've cut off your own path by entering. The officiator spat out a mouthful of blood. His voice was cold as he stared at the Empress, who was getting closer and closer. That white-clothed woman was untainted by even a speck of dust. She had really crossed over, traversed the river of time, and went against history to arrive at this special place that didn't belong to the real world. That's enough. You will end your own life here. Do you really think that beings at the end of the road can't be destroyed? At the very least, this place can make you die for eternity. The creatures of the world will never remember you again. If you don't want to be remembered, you will pass away forever. The officiator sneered again and again. The Empress arrived and blasted her palm over. She almost blew up the officiator, and even his soul light was almost destroyed. However, her own condition wasn't very good either. She was swaying unceasingly, and her soul light was also swaying incessantly. It was as if it was difficult for her to continue existing in this world for a long time. The Empress attacked in succession and finally blasted the officiator who was bound by the sacrificial ground. She destroyed him, but it was obvious that this person wouldn't die just like that. The officiator was difficult to be destroyed by the heavens and difficult to be buried by the earth. He was already close to eternal and indestructible. As long as someone thought of him, he would appear in the world again. The Empress didn't stop here. She suddenly gazed at the depths of the forbidden ground. There were memorial tablets enshrined there, and there were gloomy, collapsed, and dilapidated palaces. There was even more boundless darkness. Crack! The Empress swatted her palm forward and struck the memorial tablet, wanting to destroy it. This could truly be said to be going straight into the deepest part of the tiger's den to dig out the tiger cub. To be exact, it was to target and kill some kind of forbidden energy that the memorial tablet represented. Bang! The Empress was in the air and blasted her palm out. Thousands of silk ribbons and 10,000 types of great daos all turned into beams of light. They deduced the life and death of the boundless universe as boundless rules descended upon the memorial tablet. How ruthless! You don't want your own life and can't be reincarnated for eternity. You still want to break that place? The officiator appeared. Even he was wiping off his cold sweat. Vaguely, there seemed to be ancient coffins appearing in front of the memorial tablet. There wasn't just one, and they were faintly discernible. Boom! The Empress's rules struck over. The 10,000 types of great daos were like cosmic tides, and also like the raging waves of time beating against the shore. They swept up the winds of the ages and drove the current world to resonate with this place. Crack! The most terrifying thing was that in the process of the Empress's body swaying, she actually made the memorial tablet emit a cracking sound. There was an ancient coffin that was blurry and didn't belong to the real world trembling slightly. Moreover, there was a memorial tablet that almost fell over. No, you aren't the real body. You are fake and illusory. Could it be that you are only a strand of obsession possessing a fake body? The officiator cried out. He was alarmed and quickly went to stop the Empress from destroying the memorial tablet. The energy here was very special. It could absorb the true spirit contained in the blood. As long as a true spirit came here and dared to attack the memorial tablet, they would suffer a calamity. The officiator discovered that the Empress didn't seem to have come with her real body. At the same time, this also made him feel a wave of cold air. That woman was indeed somewhat powerful. Her fake body had actually come without him knowing. Of course, this was also related to the restriction of the sacrificial ground. He couldn't let go of his hands and feet, and it was difficult for him to display his full strength. Bang! The officiator appeared again and frantically tried to stop the Empress. However, in a split second, he was sent flying. Because the Empress was pulling the memorial tablets, it caused the sacrificial ground to shake violently. With a loud bang, a memorial tablet finally fell over completely. This made an ancient coffin tremble even more violently, triggering a great change. The entire expanse of time was collapsing. It was as if the ancient history that once existed was about to cease to exist. This was an unimaginably shocking upheaval. At this time, in the outside world and between the heavens, a shadow appeared in the hearts of all the experts from various races. It was as if their memories were covered, and they didn't feel as if they were going to forget many things in a trance. The level of the struggle in the sacrificial ground was too high. The domain it emitted was truly vast and boundless, and as a result, it triggered waves that shocked the world. At the crucial moment, the Empress' entire body shone. With a boom, she turned into an attacking beam of light and struck the memorial tablet from all directions, causing the sacrificial ground to crack. The domain that affected the myriad realms was crushed and swept back. The storm erupted within the sacrificial ground and didn't expand outwards. The officiator coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. He flew out horizontally. In addition, clattering sounds rang out. Iron chains appeared below the memorial tablet, locking the sacrificial tablet. The dilapidated, gloomy palace rumbled. If the sacrificial ground is damaged, the heavens will no longer exist, the officiator roared. He suffered serious injuries, injuring his own life and the origin of the great Tao. He was closely related to this place and was almost bound together. Being bound, the sacrificial ground seriously affected everything about him. The Empress figure disappeared. She turned into a beam of light and struck a terrifying hole in one of the memorial tablet. "You dare!" the officiator roared. He seemed to be filled with resentment and boundless rage. Then, he threatened to destroy the Yang realm. Moreover, he reached out a palm, wanting to cross the heavens and reach towards the Yang realm. At this time, on the other side of the hazy bridge of death, an otherworldly figure appeared and attacked again. She struck out a magical imprint, and it actually turned into herself. Earlier, that figure also struck out like this, attacking the sacrificial ground. Now, her true body was continuously activated. With each magical imprint, a figure quickly and domineeringly struck out. Her magical body looked divine and indistinct, transcending and otherworldly as it soared into the sky. She possessed boundless power, unmatched and unstoppable. Rumble. This time, her magical body blocked the officiator in front of the sacrificial ground. Moreover, the true body on the other side of the bridge of death formed magical imprints without end, striking out several figures in succession. Those figures merged into one. With an explosive boom, they pierced through the heavens and landed on a certain land. The great 1,000 worlds completely collapsed. The officiator was furious. That was why he wanted to take action against the Yang realm, but the other party was even worse. She directly acted ruthlessly, attacking a certain territory of the Grey race. Through the heavens, she pierced through the heavens. The boundless energy directly landed on that territory, completely wiping out a branch of the Grey race. This absolutely shook the world and made all of history tremble. Someone actually pierced through the heavens and killed a certain race in the heavens. It was too terrifying. I just had a thought, yet you already took action, wiping out a small branch of my race. Kill. The officiator was furious. With boundless energy, he urged the sacrificial ground to approach. The world seemed to be collapsing. Heaven and earth hung upside down, and the long river of time became chaotic. The sacrificial ground was about to enter the present world. However, the Empress had long since made preparations. Magical imprints shot out one after another, all of them striking into the sacrificial ground. They turned into several figures, and it was as if they all possessed the power of her true body. She no longer killed the officiator and instead directly attacked the memorial tablets, wanting to completely destroy them. Amidst intense explosions, the universe opened, heaven and earth destroyed, primal chaos surging. The great 1,000 worlds were about to return to their starting point. Something extremely terrifying was happening in the sacrificial ground. Some of the memorial tablets split apart. There were hazy ancient coffins that seemed to have been affected, wishing to return to the present world from an unknown land, wishing to use the sacrificial ground as a springboard. The officiator was horrified. He continuously fed them with true blood, and then he quickly rushed towards the Empress. "I'm going to break your bridge of death, sever your path of return." The officiator crossed 10,000 worlds, walking past the burial pit and closing in on the bridge of death. He was going to cut off the Empress' path of return. Only, when he approached this place, he sensed boundless killing intent, as well as a flourishing life force. Hong. There was actually an immeasurable gravitational force from the Empress' side, wishing to pull the sacrificial ground and the officiator to the other shore. Kill. Moreover, at this time the Empress spoke for the first time. It was only a single word, and even though the quality of her voice was pleasant to listen to, it carried boundless killing intent, making all creatures at the end of the road feel a bone-chilling coldness. Pooh! At this time, the officiator actually suddenly split into pieces. The memorial tablets in the sacrificial ground were uprooted from the ground, and all the gloomy palaces exploded into pieces. Accompanied by the sounds of sobbing, whispering, and weeping, several ancient coffins appeared at the same time. My God, are we going to kill the supreme and invincible creatures? The dog emperor howled loudly. Even though it couldn't see, it had a feeling that something shocking was about to happen. It's hard to say. Even if we are going to kill them, we will have to keep beheading them over and over again, killing for 108,000 years, Judeoyi said faintly, as if he was very experienced. The dog emperor looked at him as if he was looking at a monster and said, "Are you still human? This is too cruel, killing for 108,000 years. Even those creatures at the end of the road will probably have a boundless psychological shadow." Chapter 1572. The great thousand worlds and countless universes floated like dust particles. When they gathered together, it was like a vast sea. It was vast and majestic. The rotation of galaxies and the collapse of the universe happened in the blink of an eye. It was insignificant. This kind of power swept through history and slammed into the embankment of the future. All of this was the birth and death of the universe and the rise and fall of the great thousand world. It was like a mottled scroll of history was slowly unfolding. But this magnificent scene, this majestic scene, how many people could appreciate it, see it? It was hard to describe, but it was happening. At this level, there was no one to see, even the enemy. It was hard to find someone who walked the same path. Not to mention a soulmate, it was hard to even meet a stranger. There was no one to talk to. The end of the road was the end of life. Rumble. In the Empress's pure white palm, the birth and death of the universe were endless. She bound the sacrificial ground and pulled the master of sacrifice to the other side of the bridge of death. It was earth-shattering. This could be said to be a change that affected the past, present, and future. Why do we seem to have forgotten something? What is happening? In front of the two-realm battlefield, even a creature at the level of the Dog Emperor was shocked. He felt that he had forgotten some things of the past. Even his memories seemed to have been changed. All of this was because of the Empress battle. It involved great karma, stirring up the raging river of time, and affecting the present world. Kill! Nindawi roared. Then, he seemed a bit confused and didn't know what was happening. After a long time, he came to and said, "That Empress in white is killing the master of sacrifice." The Dog Emperor also quickly came back to his senses. Some of his blurry memories recovered. He said, "Yes, Empress, the ancestors are above, and I am below. This is too crazy. Even the highest-level creatures are about to be beheaded. The heads of the freaks are being cut off? This is too terrifying. A great battle has affected the stability of the past, present, and future. Even the meaning of our existence is being questioned," the corpse said with a trembling voice. Then, he roared and called for the main soul, shouting for it to return quickly. He also wanted to become stronger. This battle won't last for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, will it? Chu Feng was seriously doubtful and asked. Normally, no matter how powerful one is and how powerful he is, it would be normal for him to spend hundreds of thousands of years to kill a supreme being. But it does affect the heavens. Jiodao Yi was extremely serious. A ray of immortal light streaked past. It was too resplendent and too dazzling. It illuminated the entire Yang realm and also illuminated every corner of the universe. In the entire great world, in this era, everyone saw it. The great Empress Ascension beam shocked the past and present, making the long river of time dance with her body, rising and falling in resonance. She illuminated the heavens. This was the last time anyone saw the Empress. From then on, she could no longer be seen by all living beings. In the end, he looked back at the other side of the death bridge. That white-clothed woman led the sacrificial ground far away. The dog emperor opened its eyes wide, trying its best to remember her. It had a feeling that they would be separated forever, separated by life and death, never to see each other again. It was panicked, terrified, and cried out with all its might. Only when it saw the moment the Empress turned back and that peerlessly beautiful woman looked at it for the last time did it stop shouting. Moreover, in that short moment it subconsciously tucked its bare dog tail between its legs. The white-clothed woman that illuminated the boundless universe disappeared. A long time passed, and people still hadn't come back to their senses. They were still immersed in the shocking atmosphere just now. Until someone in front of the two-realm battlefield cried out in alarm. "What is that?" In the primordial chaos and under the earth, many ruins were revealed. They were ancient, serene, and frighteningly ancient. Those mottled traces were filled with the aura of time. They were definitely from prehistoric times, or even from many years ago. That is, even the rotten universe-level beings were stunned and petrified on the spot. Even the immortal kings were dumbfounded after seeing it. They were all speechless. Those were dilapidated shrines, abandoned temples, and ancient buildings that had collapsed in the primordial chaos. What was recorded on them? Those were prehistoric battles, stone carvings from the last era, or even several eras ago. However, what was recorded on those ancient scrolls that seemed to be a reenactment of ancient history? That was the Empress. She raised her hand and blew up the officiant, leading the sacrificial ground to the other side of the bridge of death to die with her, never to return. How is this possible? That's right. It clearly happened not long ago, so how did it suddenly become history? This made the dog emperor's hair stand on end, and even Nine Dowie was horrified. What had happened? How could this be? They had all felt it in the battle not long ago, and they had even personally experienced that kind of pressure and great fear. How could it have become a part of history now? This is impossible. The rotten corpse shook its head vigorously. Chu Feng looked like he had seen a ghost. He really couldn't believe it. The Yuan clan, the Four Tribulation Sparrow, and the other immortal kings hiding in the sky also felt their scalps go numb. They felt a bone-chilling coldness invading their bodies. This was truly inconceivable. A living person, that beautiful and lively Empress, killed the officiant. How did this become an old story of the rise and fall of an era? No wonder. That level is simply unfathomable. I vaguely heard the officiant mention more than once that he wanted to kill his way to the present world. Does this mean that they are not in the real heavens, not in this era? Nine Dowie frowned. He had some understanding. How terrifying was a being at that level? Their realm and the results they created were too frightening and incomprehensible. Could it be that their battle changed the course of history, resulting in this result? The rotten corpse's expression changed, and he felt his hair stand on end. If this was the case, would their lives and the meaning of their existence be changed? How could the course of history be changed? This was too frightening. No, maybe what we saw was only a part of history. What we saw just now was just an illusion. Everything we saw just now was a reenactment of history. It's these ancient tablets and the traces in these ruined temples that reflect the truth of history. Nine Dowie said solemnly. After all, he had come into contact with that being and had some understanding of the supreme beings. However, he also had some doubts. He said, "Of course, maybe, the battle just now really changed something. It happened in reality, but in the end, it changed the course of the river of time." At this point, he couldn't continue. This was too frightening. Who can tell the difference between the past and the present? The short old man who had revived from the famed mountain, left behind the scripture of time, and wanted to capture the martial madman, as a Tao child said. He was very sensitive to time and had a lot of say. He was extremely solemn, and with a hint of fear, he said, for that kind of being, perhaps when facing upstream in the river of time, the ancient history is the future, and the present world and the future we are in may be the ancient history after she turned around. Everyone was stunned. According to his words, it was too frightening. In front of the two-realm battlefield, there were countless experts. Many old patriarchs and ancestors from other worlds had come, but now they were all silent, not knowing what to say. "What are you doing with your tail between your legs?" The zombie suddenly realized that the Dog Emperor had been in this position for a long time. "Ugh, get lost!" The Dog Emperor blushed, which was rare. Of course, with its big black face, no one could see the dark red state it was in. It looked embarrassed, and it looked left and right. It whispered, "It's a habit. Although the Empress's beauty is unparalleled, I'm a little scared when I see her." The others couldn't hear it, but Chu Feng was right in front of the Dog Emperor, Nine Dowie, and the zombie. He heard it clearly, and he couldn't help but laugh. This dog also had times when it was afraid. It even had its tail between its legs. It was a habit. "Brat, who are you laughing at?" The Dog Emperor flew into a rage, and it couldn't keep its face any longer. It stood up, cleared its throat, and stretched out its paw to slap Chu Feng. "Senior, this Dog Emperor wants to kill me!" Chu Feng called out to Nine Dowie. "We're all on the same side." Nine Dowie stopped the Dog Emperor, not letting it do anything rash. "If it weren't for the fact that I can't bear to kill you with that face of yours, I would really want to bite your head off," the Dog Emperor threatened. "Do you know who I am?" Chu Feng pointed at his own face and said, "I haven't awakened yet, but once I awaken, I'll be a great emperor, a supreme immortal emperor, an existence at the end of the road." "Which immortal emperor? Which great emperor?" The Dog Emperor was shocked, and it looked at the face that made it feel conflicted. Sweeping through billions of universes, overturning the past, the present, and the future, the one and only Chu Zhongdi, no, Emperor Chu. "Scram, you bastard!" the Dog Emperor shouted fiercely. Boom! Suddenly, the sky split open, and 3 balls of light appeared in the sky, illuminating the universe. The Dog Emperor raised its head and roared, "What now? Who the F***ck is coming this time?" The Dog Emperor raised its head and roared, "I forgot one thing. The Huang Celestial Emperor is really coming this time, and the Perfect World animation is about to be released. There's already a trailer, and it's hot-blooded and passionate. It's posted on my Weibo and WeChat official accounts, and those who like the Huang Celestial Emperor can go and watch it." Chapter 1573. 3 balls of light tore through the void and came from beyond the heavens. Vaguely, it gave people a feeling that they came from the heavens. It was too resplendent. 3 spheres of light erupted like trillions of cosmos, about to collide with each other, illuminating the heavens and 10,000 realms, making it hard for one to open their eyes. At the same time, there was a boundless aura that was grand and majestic. It was as if heaven and earth were being opened up once more, displaying the scene of the beginning of all things. Everything was going to be overturned and rebuilt. "What the hell is that?" "That's enough," the Dog Emperor mumbled softly, not daring to scold the dog impudently. The hearts of the others trembled as well. Too many things had happened in the two-realm battlefield. First, the creator of the scripture of time, that short old man, appeared and broke through to the Immortal King realm. Then, the fallen Immortal King, the 4 Tribulation Sparrow, and the Yuan clan's Immortal King all descended. The Dog Emperor, the Carrion Corpse, and the 9 Paths of Tao also displayed their prowess. Moreover, there were envoys from the high heavens who came, but in the end, some were killed, and some fled in panic. The supreme decree had once appeared, yet it was broken into pieces. The light of the Celestial Emperor in the bronze coffin shook the ancients and dazzled the present. Then, the officiant and the Empress fought, reversing the past, present, and future. Before the female Empress left, her peerless elegance shook the myriad of worlds and shook everyone's hearts. Even now, people were still in a daze. Now, what had the heavens sent down? The various clans were all a bit alarmed. the lord of a clan, the first ancestor of a sect were all trembling. They all believed that those who dared to appear now most likely had great backgrounds. Right now, in the heavens and all realms, the leaders of the various great clans felt like they were suffocating, their minds strained. The more they knew, the more terrified they became. The patriarchs and patriarch-level beings all looked up at the three balls of light in the sky. He's here. As expected, I've arrived at the two-realm battlefield. As expected, 3 balls of light charged straight for the two-realm battlefield, and they quickly revealed their true forms. Everyone was shocked. There was actually a person in each of the 3 spheres of light. They were all divine and otherworldly, making it hard for others to look straight at them. When they looked at the 3 of them, they couldn't help but want to kowtow and prostrate themselves on the ground. Even immortal kings were no exception, their bodies shaking uncontrollably, about to bow down on the ground. In that instant, everyone felt as if their heads were about to explode. Formidable creatures came after all. Was it another Lu Jin-level creature? However, those who reached the end of the path were praised as supreme existences. Even after many great eras passed, there weren't many of them. Now, how could there be 3 of them at once? This was unrealistic. Within the first sphere of light was an old man. His white eyebrows were a full foot long, and he stood on primal chaos mist. He looked very ethereal, and at the same time, he gave off a hidden sharpness. However, there was a fist imprint on his chest that pierced through him, connecting from front to back. Creatures at his level were definitely powerful, yet the wound actually couldn't heal? The fist seal seemed to still be emitting light, and its might had not been extinguished yet. Within the second sphere of light was a woman. Her purple hair draped over her shoulders, and she was dignified and elegant. 108 halos appeared behind her head, displaying her noble and divine aura. At the same time, the strange thing was that there was actually a bloody hole between her brows as well, and it extended from her jade-white forehead into her hair. It was a horrifying crack. Within the third sphere of light was a middle-aged man. His entire being was extremely serene and unfathomable. There was a lamp on his shoulder that flickered and emitted light. It was as if it illuminated the entire misty and chaotic sky of history. What shocked everyone was that there were wounds on the left side of his body. Half of his face and half of his body were practically in tatters. There was a layer of faint red hair on the tattered half of his body. It was ominous and astonishing. How did this happen? Everyone gasped. These were creatures that surpassed the immortal king realm. That kind of aura was incomparably intimidating, but how did they suffer such heavy injuries? Who was the one that caused this? If they came from the heavens, what kind of identity did they have? Why did they come? Many people were alarmed and terrified. They felt a tremendous pressure, and their bodies and soul light were all shivering. Some sect ancestors couldn't endure it. Their bodies betrayed their consciousness, and they prostrated on the ground, kowtowing uncontrollably. The evolutionary level of these 3 people definitely surpassed the immortal king realm. However, everyone was also somewhat aware that they couldn't compare to the officiant, and they were even more unable to be mentioned in the same breath as the Empress. Without waiting for everyone to ponder, one of the 3 people spoke first and directly stated the purpose of their arrival. A new era is about to begin. We have come in this great era of destruction for a glimmer of life in this world. Moreover, they announced their names. This old one is primal chaos. This old one is myriad tribulations. This one is samsara. At the same time, they restrained their own auras. They didn't have that kind of oppressive might anymore, but there was some kind of Tao rhythm that was hard to describe. In a daze, they became the carriers of Tao and became the embodiment of the origin of order in the myriad worlds. The origin of all Tao, the beginning of all living things, and the creation of heaven and earth seemed to originate from them. At this moment, all the order and great Tao fragments in the myriad worlds manifested and interweaved into a tangible body. They resonated with these three people, and it truly shocked the world. They are? Some people were incomparably sensitive. After hearing their names, they immediately made a connection. Primal chaos, myriad tribulations, and samsara. When these three names appeared together, people really couldn't help but think more. It made some true immortals and old experts visibly moved, and they immediately thought of these three artifacts. The owners of these three monarch weapons had once scattered their weapons throughout the heavens. They were respectively named Primal Chaos Truncheon, Myriad Tribulations Mirror, and Reincarnation Lamp. We are the artifact spirits of these three monarch weapons. They were very calm and explained the situation further. In fact, during the world hegemony back then, the undefeated Feather Emperor had grasped two monarch weapons in succession. They were actually the shells of monarch weapons without artifact spirit. Even so, the aura of the great Tao fragments emitted by those artifacts still intimidated the world. In fact, when the three weapons became one and fused with the three artifact spirits, they would only become one weapon. That was the true weapon of an expert like Lu Jin. Now, where did they come from? Were they passing on a message for that supreme being? In order to ensure a glimmer of life, we will transform into the Tao and protect the heavens. Everyone, we must speed up the unification. There isn't much time left, and this glimmer of life is fleeting. After they finished speaking, they no longer took on human forms. Instead, they turned into spirit lights, taking on the appearances of the Primal Chaos Truncheon, Myriad Tribulations Mirror, and Reincarnation Lamp. There were fist marks on their bodies. They had been shattered by someone in the past. Moreover, there were red hairs growing on the Reincarnation Lamp. Even these artifact spirits had been corroded and brought about an ominous event. Hong. Immediately afterwards, they scattered, transforming into the Tao, merging into the endless worlds of the heavens, thus disappearing. Above high heavens, in the uninhabited region, that was a land of slaughter from the great streams of time. That was a terrifying land that truly transcended everything, far away from all life. That place was separated from high heavens by an endless terrifying sea. At this time, there was someone who was driving a small boat, struggling to cross it, moving alone on the boundless sea. He seemed to have sensed something, starting to laugh coldly. I seem to have sensed something. There is someone who can't wait any longer, wishing to seize the initiative. So what? Not even an expert like me who returned on the Emperor Bone dares act carelessly, yet you all dare try to seize the initiative? That is the great vicious individual's homeland. Do you really think that he isn't here anymore, forever silent? Aren't you scared that he will suddenly jump out and beat you to death? These were his words, carrying coldness, ruthlessness, as well as mockery, as well as a type of deep restraining fear. In the past, he had already spoken, returning on the Emperor Bone, wishing to enter the endless worlds of the heavens. Today, he sensed something again, revealing a strand of spiritual opportunity above high heavens. In front of the two realms battlefield, the Dog Emperor, Nine Daos, the Rotten Corpse, and the others all felt a sense of urgency. No matter what, gathering all the powers of the heavens together was indeed an urgent mission. Everyone, from now on, the 10,000 realms must return to one, there must be no more internal strife. Nine Daos spoke. I recommend Senior Yu Shang to be the Celestial Emperor. Chu Feng immediately shouted. A junior like you, who do you think you are? The one you recommend is merely an evolver at the Tao of Origin realm, yet you dare to covet the Celestial Emperor's position? In the sky dome above, someone laughed coldly. Who? Did you forget that not long ago, the Yuan clan, the Four Tribulation Sparrow, and the others were all dejected and depressed? Chu Feng raised his head, laughing coldly and saying, He is the direct descendant of the Celestial Emperor in the copper coffin. I feel that he is very suitable. When these words were spoken, many people's expressions changed. We aren't convinced. The Celestial Emperor position isn't pushed out like this. In the distance, the reincarnation path opened, and a creature walked out. This time, it was actually no longer muddle-headed, able to speak normally. "Senior, lend me your weapon." Chu Feng was very fierce, directly speaking to Nine Daos. He also extended his hand, taking the rusty battle spear. With a boom, he hurled it out without a second word. Nine Daos was dumbfounded and shocked. He didn't expect that Chu Feng could actually really lift this battle spear, and could even throw it out. This was a bit strange. The people on the other side also didn't expect this brat to be so daring, so decisive, and so murderous. As soon as they met, he made a killing move. This battle spear had a great origin. It was seized from the hands of the enemy, refined, and left behind for future generations. Now, after the battle spear flew out, with a boom, the spear point stabbed that reincarnation path, directly stabbing some people into nothingness. The impact of this matter was too great. A reincarnation path, and some experts were stabbed by the battle spear, and disappeared without a trace. And during this process, Chu Feng was in a daze at first, but he quickly calmed down and shouted in a loud voice, "Don't ask who I am invincible across 1,000,000,000,000 universes. One day, the day will come when the past, present, and future will call my name, Emperor Chu." There was an advertisement, and the animation of the same name, adapted from the original work, A Thought Forever, was officially broadcast. August 12, 10:00. The first 3 episodes were broadcast consecutively. Exclusive to Tencent Video, broadcast every Wednesday. Tencent Video promotional link. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.